I want to preface this podcast with a comment in the chat. One of the few good things about America is you can trash talk the national religion, and no one cares because they destroyed your economic system and social standing anyway. I want you to remember who your real enemy is. If you are sensitive about religious subjects, you messed up. You are confused. You are at war. And the war is with the people who have stolen you or stolen your brothers and sisters. Focus your energies against your enemies, and we can actually proceed forward. Today's podcast, if somebody's shown you this podcast, it's because they appreciate you, they love you, and they want you to get out of the confusion. We're going to go deep into a revolutionary reading of what is called the Sermon on the Mount, which is a piece of propaganda designed to keep you colonized. I'm going to read it like an African revolutionary. I'm going to read it under the pretext, under the context of somebody who is informed on an African background. And from there, I want you to enjoy, sit back. You're into the pro-Black perspective.
Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Ma'at, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
As said earlier, we are discussing the Sermon on the Mount, Matthews 5-7. If you have your Bible, you can read along, but you shouldn't have a Bible, honestly. I'm going to put the link up on the screen, so anybody who's not listening to this on an audio format, you can read along. But that's pretty much That's pretty much it. What I want to do before we get into the podcast is remind you that I'm part of a podcasting network called KWAZ Radio, and there are other shows that I definitely want you to listen to.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
All right, peace, family. So we're going to give this reading, a really good revolutionary reading, to anti-revolutionary text. This one's called Matthews 5. We're going to use the New American Standard Bible. I was told that this is a good version. There was somebody who claimed to be a Christian, and I said, what, the New James, New James Testament? They said, no, you got to go to the New American. It's more updated. It's more blah, 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 whatever, right? So I took their word for it. We're going to read it, and we're going to see why this is not a revolutionary text, why this is not about Black power, why this is not about Black liberation, why we shouldn't use it. You're going to see this, and I want to make it clear. If nothing comes from this, I want you to understand that it's possible that the Old Testament is designed for the reader to colonize people. Okay? Remember, it's a story of quote unquote, Iranians, right? Just remember the story of Abraham and where he comes from, right? Which is somewhere in Iran, right? The story of Iranians going and invading Palestine and then subjugating those people under them with a code of ethics, a code of morals, a code of war to dominate and colonize these people, right? So the Old Testament's about how to colonize a people, whereas the New Testament is how to be colonized, how to behave, how to be colonized, right? And neither of these mentalities are good for you. Not to say that there isn't a historical context for colonization, but when we talk about Pan-African nationalism, we talk about Black power, we're not talking about colonizing a foreign people or colonizing the Gentiles of Africa. We are talking about joining with our cousins, with our brothers and our sisters, and becoming a force to be reckoned with. We're not talking about going to a foreign land. We are talking about a foreign land and ruling in a foreign land. We're talking about joining in our land authentically, not off some bullshit like, oh, I like this land, but authentically, like, this is where we are from. So, and of course, the people in Africa are already there, and they should have the same ideologies that we do. So while I can recognize the value that the Hebrew or the Israeli can put inside of a book meant to take somebody else's land, or I could recognize the value of a Roman citizen saying, hey, look, let's obey, let's be colonized. I can't recognize that value in African people. And I'm going to show you with what may be the most important passages in this biblical text that was used to take away our revolutionary spirit. There's this brother, we have this podcast on the network called Shoot the Breeze on Bitter Medicine Podcast. There's a brother who's there who's saying he wanted to articulate how the Haitian spiritual system facilitated their warfare and their revolutionary mindset. And there is something there, because when you study the different ethical systems, the different moral systems in this world, you're going to see that some of them, like this one, really does not want you to fight, really does not want you to raise your hand, really does not want you to buck against anyone, really wants you to be about peace with all people around you. And that sort of mentality is what is not revolutionary. It's not revolutionary. So let's get into the reading, because I want to introduce everybody who's might be new here to the channel, and I want everybody to feel comfortable. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, do all those things. But let's go into it. This is Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, right? So it says, now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. And bear in mind, what's interesting about this is that at this point in time, right, according to this story, so Matthew is introduced to Jesus, right? According to this story, he's a tax collector. He's introduced to Jesus in Matthew's 8 or 9. So this is Matthew's 5. This is before Matthew's even allegedly meets this person, right? So what is he even saying? I have no idea, right? But look at this. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and began to teach them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That's already the first mistake. So while the Old Testament may have told you, hey man, hoard some riches, get some riches, this right here is telling you, hey, look, you're actually blessed when you're poor. And you can go to heaven when you're poor. You understand? Already, and remember, this is not like just first off, if anybody told you this today, hey, you know what? You're better off poor because afterlife, like you're better off poor in life because afterlife you'll get real riches, you'll get rewards. If anybody told you that right now, today, with all the scientific knowledge that you have today, you would rightly say, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. However, this is not only the religion, this is a person perpetrating to be a deity. This is a person perpetrating, right, to be a magician. Like I said, I don't want to read Matthews 8 and 9, but at some point, this individual is alleged to calm the storms. Like calm the storms. It's wizard shit. Okay? So, a people who may not have the scientific experience or scientific exposure that we do are being told that this wizard, who's a son of a deity or a deity himself, is saying, you know what? Don't acquire riches. Don't be rich, right? Because if you were rich, you would not go to heaven. You would not go to an afterlife that I am claiming to exist, that doesn't exist. Humans do not have more of an, and I want people to understand this, because I know that there are some people who are just who are religious, who may, why do people do that? I don't even know who this is, but there are people who, I gotta turn off my ringtone apparently, but there are people who, let me just turn this off, because basically people in Tanzania that you don't talk to are suddenly like, hey, you've been talking to me. You haven't spoken to me in a while, so yeah. All right, so that's already the first thing. Now, this is not the biggest thing, but it just goes and gets worse. And the thing about this is that it's not too repetitive, so you have to concentrate on everything as you see, right? Let me just see what the chat's like before we thing. So we got Kofi. Let me say everything. Erica Howard's here. Peace, Erica Howard. Appreciate you being here. Kofi says greetings. Real Black Gentleman says good morning. And I do want people to engage the chat, because this is a text that people are going to be familiar with. Real Black Gentleman says, bless itself is a word I'm trying to avoid. In other languages, it is the root word for injury, right? Real Black Gentleman with the scholarship here, and Kofi's greeting everybody. So peace to everybody in the chat. All right, so blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Again, somebody told you this today, it would be like you would say, get out of my life, right? Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, right? Now, again, this is okay, right? This is okay. I'm not going to say that everything here is bad. And that's one of the things I want people to understand too. I want people to understand this, right? This is what would be considered a book of quote unquote wisdom, okay? A wisdom book. I don't want to give it that good title, but unfortunately, that is what this takes the place of. Now, we have to recognize that a lot of African people who become associated with the biblical texts are in fact stolen. Okay? Many of them were stolen. Now, you might say, hey, that only applies to the African diaspora, right? It doesn't necessarily apply to the people in Africa, but that is not true. There is a person whose story is not entirely factual, okay? I'm going to say that up front. Malidoma Some, he talks about little spirits that, little spirits that he can engage with. And some people even say that they would go to his land and they would see these little spirits, it's a little nonsensical. But of course, there's nothing, like anything is possible, right? Either way, I would take this with a grain of salt. Nonetheless, he is what is autobiographical. So this is autobiography, but it has spirits, it has initiation, it has all that kind of stuff. But what is undeniable is that he was kidnapped as a child and then taught the Bible. Okay? He was kidnapped as a child and then taught the Bible. That is what's undeniable. All right. A lot of, and when he was in these religious schools, a lot of the other children in these schools were kidnapped for the purpose of, when they are informed on this Bible, they can go back and teach their own people. You see what I'm saying? And they can go back and assume different positions. Because that's another thing that people don't understand. And this is why I wrote this, the Book of Power. Because there's a fundamental thing. There's a fundamental aspect. There's something fundamentally powerful in adult education. Okay? A lot of times we talk about the education of children. Adult education, pretty much what this podcast is actually. But adult education has its own power associated with it. All right? And that power allows for a people to control another people. All right? Because essentially, when you teach, all right, I'll say it this way, right? Can I, as an English speaker, right, get a really good post, like a really good science career or a really good teaching career, whatever, in Germany? You see what I'm saying? No, because I don't speak German. So what happens is this: if you kidnap children, right, and you teach them English, right, or you teach them Italian or whatever, right, you teach them a language. When you have these political posts and these political positions in this country, right, like let's say you're in the middle of Africa, right, if you set up a colony, the people who can assume the political posts are the people who have received the religious instruction. The counter-revolutionary, anti-revolutionary religious instruction. It's not going to be the natives, because the natives cannot speak the language to engage with the colonists, or they engage with the colonizer. There's something fundamental in adult education. I want people to remember that. Now, let me continue looking at the comments. Real Black Gentleman says, Blessed has nuanced relation to bleed. As a man, I have certain feelings about bleeding. I need my blood to flow freely, but in its proper course inside of my body. All right, Real Black Gentleman. Very descriptive. Very descriptive. Let's go to the next one. So, again, not everything is bad, but understand that when it comes to wisdom, one of the most important things is that you can slip in something that's bad. So right here, next one, 5:5, Matthew's 5:5. Blessed are the gentle, for they will inherit the earth. Now, I want people to understand this. What will inherit the earth are the violent. Okay? Are the violent. I want you to look at my name. My name is Onitaset, right? I know you guys call me Oni. That's fine. My name is Onitaset. Look at the latter syllables, or the last two syllables, right? Tase, right? Spell it out. Taset, right? Add an I, Taseti. If you understand that the quote unquote, what is called the first kingdom on earth. Now, I'm not going to say that it is the first kingdom, but what is known as the first kingdom, the earliest kingdom in all of humanity, right, was Taseti. And this was, Taseti stands for the land of the bow. So as to say that the first kingdom in the history of our planet was a landmass where the king had something that maybe nobody else had. Well, not that nobody else had, but he mastered something above and beyond what everybody else was, and that was an army, a ranged army at that, very skilled warriors. That's what makes this the distinguishing historical accomplishment for humanity. Taseti, the land of the bow, the people who are are skilled at war. And Taseti, if you don't know, this is also Kenesu, then colonizes, because remember we were talking about colonization, then colonizes Kemet. It's the people of Taseti who Heru travels to, and Heru is just a word for the king, right? One or the colonizer, essentially, right? The colonizer, a colonization effort comes out of ancient Kenesu, or you can say Kush, and it then terraforms. Listen to that, terraforms Egypt or Kemet to the point where it's habitable and unites the two kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt. Or Menes eventually unites the two kingdoms. And again, Menes unites them through violence. The gentle do not inherit the earth. The gentle lose the earth. If you're talking about real wisdom, the gentle lose the earth. A lot of our ancestors may have been gentle, or not as vicious as, or not as war-minded as our enemies, and we've lost our land. We've lost our land. So for someone to tell you, "Hey, look, it is good to be gentle. It is good to be gentle," and that will give you land. That's not true. It is far from true. And again, this is the counter-revolutionary mindset, because so far we see, hey, look, mourning is good. Being poor is good. And now being gentle is good. Let's go on. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. Now, look, I don't have an issue with this one because I have an African understanding of what righteousness means. Okay, I have an African understanding of what righteousness means. Now, I already know that this is not coming from an African mindset. So I cannot say whether, like, I cannot, like, but my thing is that I'm so deeply, like, I think so black. I can't think white for a second. I can't. So I don't even know what is trying to be said here, but that's a nice statement. And I want people to realize this. This is not a book that I made up. This is not a book that, just came out. This is not a book that a lot of black folk ain't familiar with. It's not a rare esoteric book. This is a book that you can go into a black person's house right now. Open up Matthew's 5. Matthew's is the first book of the New Testament. Open up the first book of the New Testament and say, yo, let's sit down and read this. And tell me this shit sound right. Tell me this shit sound right. And if it does not sound right, then why do you have this book? Why are you reading this book? Why are you engaging this book? Because a lot of the stuff that may be right in the Bible, these 3, I don't know what they call them, verses, chapters, I don't know. Right? But these Matthews 5-8 or Matthews 5-7 takes out what might be right, what might be good. And I want you to understand that. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Now, again, this is not a truism. It's not bad. It's not horrible. It's not horrible, but it's not true. You understand? Oh my gosh. In fact, I'm actually mad about this one right here. So for those of you who do not know, and I don't want to get off subject too much. Oh, Asani's here. Oh, greetings, Asani. Appreciate her for coming through. Real Black Gentleman says Taseti, land of the bow, right? Exactly, land of the bow, land of the military. I appreciate Asani. Make sure you guys check out Asani. She's a bomb musician out in Texas, right? But why am I mad at Matthews 5:7? Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. I am mad at this because there's a story inside of the Book of Power, in fact, but also in David Walker's Appeals. So David Walker, if you guys don't know, is one of our African American ancestors, right? Who was just a badass. He wrote a book calling for black folk to just go to war with these white boys. He was like, we can't suffer against these guys. He said the most moral white person is more immoral, is less moral than the least moral black person. Right? He said he brought so much truth. He taught so much good. But at some point he tells a story. And it's one of those stories you wanna remember. That's why I put it in the Book of Power. But it's one of those stories where he says, true story. There were African, because remember, he wrote this during slavery, to the point where some people think that he inspired Nat Turner's insurrection. Okay? That he inspired Nat Turner's insurrection. This is why it's really important that you write and read books. And this is why it's important that this book get out of your library, or this book get out of African libraries, because what he's saying right here, blessed are the merciful, for they'll receive mercy, right? It's not true. In fact, it's really a bad thing to say. It's a horrible thing to say, and I'll show you, right? So in a newspaper clipping, David Walker shares how there were these Africans being transported, enslaved Africans being transported, and somehow one of them discovered that their shackles were not tied. So they untied the shackles, or loosened the shackles of everybody else, all the other men and women in the back of the van. It might have been 30 something, right? So come time, they gave a signal and they attacked the 3 white men who were carrying them, right? In the back of the van, and they killed 2 of them, and one of them, they started beating the shit out of him. And then a black woman said, no, don't do that. Come on, let's keep him, let's be good Christians. You know what I'm saying? And they, scattered off, I guess, right? This white man got up. She helped him on his horse. He got up and was able to round up about 10 of them, or all 30 of them. Right? They spared his life, but they were able to round up all 30 of them and put 10 of them on the death penalty. Because if you are merciful, that does not mean that you will receive mercy. And I told you all this story. This is actually a really, really terrible thing to tell somebody. I told you guys the story of one time I was choking somebody, right? Rear naked choke. Their life was passing before their eyes. And I said, you know what? Let me not kill you. Now, this was not an age that I should have been killing anybody anyway. But I said, let me not kill you. But did they, what they did afterward, they ran away, obviously. But then they came back and attacked me when they fully recovered. Because, and of course, that was a good lesson for me, Because, again, I was too young. I shouldn't have been killing anybody anyway. And, of course, I didn't die either. So it was a good experience to learn from. But what it tells me is this, that there is no such thing as a victory until you are victorious. Being merciful does not mean that you will get mercy. But this is the mentality that they want you to have. Because when you're merciful, guess what? They can be merciless to you. Again, this is one of those counter-revolutionary things that has just seeped in. And like I said, I initially was like, because again, I as much as I do not, unfortunately, I live in this American country that comes from a Christian culture. Okay? So even I could, a lot of the animations, a lot of the television, a lot of things will tell you, hey, being merciful is good. But like I said, my own experience, and of course the experience of Africans before me, has told me that being merciful only invites mercilessness. Only invites mercilessness. And I want people to understand this, because Frederick Douglass even said this. Frederick Douglass said something along these lines where he says that, because he's talking about the whole nonviolence philosophy. Apparently the nonviolence philosophy went back even during our enslavement. And he said, the enslaved African who was whipped easiest was whipped most often. Okay? Who you can whip easily, is the one that was whipped the most. And that's just a fact of life. That's just a fact of life. If you can be easily beaten, people will beat you. That's just a fact of life. Now, I want to just continue. Let me see what the comments are like. So yeah, appreciation to everybody in the chat. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Now, I want people to understand this, because some people are not going to like this, and it sounds like it's unnecessary, but I have to. A lot of this scripture, in a sense, right, is under the context that you have this invisible sky daddy, this invisible sky father who's watching your every move and exists, right? This is not true. This is not true. Just like if somebody today were to tell you, hey, you know, Zeus and Hera, you know, but Zeus wouldn't do that. And Hera, you would tell them, hey, look, that's just a mythology. It's just a story. Just something to make people, probably make people behave a certain way, right? Just something to make people behave a certain way. It's not a truth. It's just an example of what is ideal or what is didactic or what is instructive. But again, when you understand what they're trying to instruct, then you got to say, well, you know what? It's not worth it. When it comes to Kemet, for instance, when it comes to the African spiritual system, you get what they're trying to instruct. When they tell you about Heru, they're trying to tell you about how to behave like a king. When they tell you about Asar and Aset, they're telling you how to behave like a family. So you get it. You get the importance of it. You don't necessarily say Asar and Aset and Heru have these magical powers and they're real entities who could do supernatural things that turn into birds. You don't say that. You just say, oh, okay, a family is somebody who looks out for each other. A mother is someone who looks out for her child. A king is somebody who consults with his elders. This is the story. These are the stories that come out of Kemet. But when you start going into the realm of, oh, yes, this is true. There's definitely something watching me and making sure that I don't touch myself. Otherwise, they're going to make me burn, right? That's not true. It's not true. So blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Now, again, the thing about this, like I said, for me, I come from an African spiritual background. Somebody says pure in heart, I can't really take issue with that. Now, I can say if somebody comes to me under a religious authority and says, are you pure in heart? If you're pure in heart, you'll tell me the truth type thing, then I could see how that's a problem. But other than that, this is a good way to manipulate people. But objectively, I won't really take an issue with it, right? Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. I want you to understand again. So Machiavelli tells us. Machiavelli is this white boy who wrote a couple of political treatises that Europeans take seriously. Europeans take these political treatises seriously, and because your enemy takes something seriously, maybe you should too. But he tells us that all of the successful prophets were armed. All of the successful prophets were armed. Blessed are the peacemakers. What is a peacemaker? And that's not a gun, although it is a gun. But they're not talking about guns in this book. Blessed are the peacemakers, right? People who make peace. But I want you to understand how peace works. There are two different ideas for what peace constitutes, right? Some would say peace is no violence, and some would say peace is violence in the hands of the state. You see, no violence in the hands of non-state entities. Okay? Either way, this is not a... Now, either way, if we're talking about having a revolutionary mindset, what we have to understand is that we have to... Or even peace, let's say another way, is peace is not in the hands of a Scotty. Okay? That's a more important thing. But again... we do not have the, again, this is what we call just regular wisdom teachings. And sometimes you cannot look at it from an objective, you have to look at it from an objective standpoint and just let it be. Again, there are more atrocious things in this book, in these passages, that you could just let it be. So blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, again, being persecuted is not really a good thing, but again, we'll let that one slide. Blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. And I want people to get this. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward in heaven is great, for in this same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. I want you to see this, right? There's a victim complex among Christians. A victim complex that is, oh, we are being persecuted for who we are, for what we are, for how we stand, for what we believe. Now, bear in mind, what they're believing is nonsensical. Or even bear in mind this, that they are trying to convert you to believing something that is nonsensical. And they're saying, hey, you know what? People are going to insult us and persecute us because they don't want you to know the truth. They don't want you to go to the afterlife with all these amazing things. No proof. And not just no proof, but just be realistic. If human beings are descended from if human beings are or have predecessors among the animal kingdom, so i.e. we are also animals, and if the animals that you eat on a daily basis, or even the plants that you eat on a daily basis, because you as a human being either eat animals, plants, or insects, but not too many of us really eat insects on purpose, or but either way, if you are eating these things that have or contain life, and you are in some way related to them in an animalistic sense, right? Then if they do not have afterlives, then you won't. If they do not have afterlives, then you won't. Because you're made from the same stuff. You understand? You're made from the same stuff. And if they are not judged in their lives, in their especially simple or non-complex lives, for what they do, to whether they will burn in some inferno or be adorned with what have you, then neither are you. A lot of the concepts inside of these religious texts, and sometimes the spiritual texts, are that you as a human being are somehow different, somehow distinct, somehow have this divinity, somehow have this soul, this spirit, this whatever. But scientifically speaking, you cannot show this. You cannot prove this. You cannot measure this. And you might say, well, actually, there's no reason for you to believe that this individual speaking, these prophets, these older people from these older cavemen, well, not cavemen, but nomads and shepherd warriors, whether that be Abraham or whether that be Jesus, there's no reason to suspect that any of them could have measured or seen these things, particularly based off of what they're saying. Jesus sounds like an ignorant person. Sounds like a fool. Well, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Jesus, Frederick Douglass is overrated. Everybody said, yeah, I mean, everybody's going to be overrated, right? The only thing is he was an observer of plantations. You know what I mean? It's you know, one thing that I like, if it's like what we're talking about with this Jesus guy, you know, like his authority on talking about religious stuff is that he's allegedly a deity's son. Now, obviously he's bullshitting, but he at least gives you a reason why you should listen to him about divine issues, right? Again, he's bullshitting, but that's a good reason. Like, you know, because if you can't test it with a microscope and you can't test it with a telescope, you know, at least have some reason why you have some sort of authority on this afterlife. The thing about Frederick Douglass is that if I tell you what went on, like, oh man, when I was on the plantation, when I was on the plantation, they would sometimes, throw rocks at us while we were working, right? That doesn't make much sense to anybody because it's like, dude, you weren't on a plantation. However, Frederick Douglass says, yeah, they used to throw rocks at us while we were on the plant. It's like, okay, well, he was on a plantation, so maybe that happened on his plantation. And he actually does share a few things that are pretty interesting. Like he shares how black folk from different plantations would argue with each other about who is the best master. It was like, and he was like, that's just some dumb shit that he used to participate in. But as he got older, he was like, why the fuck would I brag about that? He's like, my master's so much richer than your master that, and the other one's like, nah, but my master is so much smarter than your master. And it's like, what the fuck? But like, I wouldn't, I don't know what the fuck that's about. But if Frederick Douglass said he saw it, he probably saw it, But anyway, so let's keep going. He said 13, he says, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by people. Okay, so he's like, look, you are the salt of the earth. Some of these passages are pretty, like I said, somebody can tell you, oh, well, this is the meaning, blah, 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 blah. Again, these are not that important. Now, what he's saying is you're the salt of the earth, but you can become tasteless if you don't follow him, pretty much. And he's like, can it be made salty? Again, it's no longer good. And so if you're not following him, you expect to be thrown out or trampled underfoot. And and it could just not be if you're followed again. It could, again, one of the things about these texts is that many people will come at many different interpretations, but it's not that important. Let's keep going. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Now, here's the big irony about this whole text, okay? He's right here. He's telling you, look, you are the light. You are the lamp. Go on the top of the hill. Do not hide. Do not shirk. Don't be in a basket. Be in a lampstand. Everybody should see your good works. He's also going to tell you, do not talk about your works. Do not let people see you doing good works. It's really and this is like the same damn lecture, which again, even according to Matthew, if a Matthew is even a real person, right? But let's say he is. He's the real tax collector, right? Even according to Matthew, he wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. He never even met the guy, he meets the guy right after this speech, more or less, and all that. But again, this is just immediately contradicted. So it says, do not presume that I came to abolish the laws of the prophets. Now, this is important. So the laws of the prophets is the Old Testament. He says, don't assume I came to abolish these laws, right? Don't think I came to abolish the laws that meant to be used to colonize people. Instead, he's like, I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. What he's doing is this. I want you to understand this. What a lot of the older laws were meant to, be clear. It's meant to be clear about who your enemies are and who your friends are. And this one is no, everybody's your friend, right? Which is a terrible mind. Have you ever heard African people? You ever heard, for instance, like I said, check out other podcasts on the KWAZ Radio Network. There's Brother Bakari, right? Brother Bakari forecasts, consider cheeks, so on, right? Tanzan. But Brother Bakari would tell you, we're the only people that try to be friends with everybody, right? This Christianity is where it's at. See, because the Judaism would tell you, don't be friends with other people. And then Jesus comes and says, no, be friends with everybody. And he's going to say it pretty explicitly as we keep going. But I want you to realize that kind of mentality is, of course, very, very, very counter-revolutionary. Now, it's already bad if you are trying to be friends with the wrong people. That's also bad. And trying to be enemies with the wrong people. If you are a an African, and you think that the Israeli are the chosen people who are going to bring the kingdom about, and you think that the Gentiles are bad and the Gentiles have bad customs, right? Which Jesus is also going to say. And those customs that the Gentiles have, you're going to notice that you have a lot of them. But anyway, if you notice that the Gentiles are a bad people, then you, with that Judaic faith, if you do not, and you're not going to apply it correctly anyway, but if you don't apply it correctly, which you won't, what you're going to do is you're going to tell, you're going to side with the Israeli, you're going to side with the Euro Jew, you're going to side with the Neanderthals against your own people. So again, that's also counter-revolutionary. What you would want is a book of wisdom from African people, which we have plenty of. You know, I would recommend Ptah Htp. I would recommend Marcus Garvey. And of course, I'd recommend the Book of Power. Those are my 3 favorite books of wisdom. But beyond that, what I'm saying is this. He's gonna like these books right here are going to be against the revolution. Are going to be against the revolution. And I wanna just again, I want to engage the chat, see what the chat's like. Jesus from Real Black Gentleman, and let's keep going. So he says, I come to fulfill it. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke of a letter shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever nullifies one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. So he's talking about, so he's like, hey man, don't, you know, I'm telling you what God is saying. I'm telling you about heaven and the afterlife. And trust me, man, if you don't follow these things, you're not going to, like, come on. All right. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So he's telling you, hey, look, under my authority as whatever, right? And again, he's really weird. Like, even in this story, he's really weird. Like, I don't want to read Matthews 8 and 9, but one of them is like, he sees these demons, like people are possessed by demons. The demons beg him to, and this is like just the next 2 chapters. So I might, but I don't want to go too long. But the demons beg him to put, like for him to put them into the pigs. Like, there are pigs nearby. So he puts the demons in the pigs. And then he gets the pigs to run off of a cliff. And then you think, okay, he did the right thing or something. So maybe people are like, yay, good for you, Jesus, right? But no, they're like, get out of our town. You know? Like, it seems like he's the fucking bad guy. I'm telling you, man. Like, even in this story, it's like in the Bible, even in this story, it's like, you might be the bad guy, you know? Anyway. All right. For I say to you that unless your righteousness far surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. All right. So, all right. You have personal relationships. He says, you have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not murder, and whoever commits murder shall be answerable to the court. Again, this is the ancients. So he's talking about the Old Testament. You know, it says, thou shalt not murder. And if you murder, you should be answerable to the court. So, when it comes to the court, now again, this is not unreasonable. You have a civilization, you have a society. You definitely don't want your people to murder per se. Now, of course, violence is one of the most important things that you can have in a society. But you want the state to do the murders, right? But of course, you can also murder other people outside of the state. But murder in this context is more or less citizen against citizen, basically being extrajudicial, which again is not necessarily good or bad, but it is what it is. You get what he's saying. He says this: you have heard that the ancients told you. So the ancients were telling you, like I said, wisdom. They're trying to tell you how to colonize another people. They're trying to tell you a code of ethics. You know, basically, you know how we say getting on code. They're saying this is on code. Do not murder your neighbor, more or less. Right? He says, but I say to you that everyone who is angry, if you're angry with his brother, shall be answerable to the court. And whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, shall be answerable to the Supreme Court. And whoever says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. So basically, Basically, if somebody, does some dumb shit, just saying you did some dumb shit, he's like, you go to hell for that. Basically, his whole mindset is this. Anger is, you're hellbound for being angry, right? Again, when we talk about revolution, right? When we talk about being anti-colonization, when we talk about, just getting into our black power, you have to understand that, particularly in the condition that you are in today, not being angry, not being willing to murder, not being able to point out who's a good for nothing, not being able to point out who's a damn fool, right? That is counter-revolutionary. Okay? And so what he's telling you is he's like, on the authority of this deity, one deity, no less, but on the authority of this one deity, that is a weak deity for most of their existence. The Jehovah character was a small player for most of their existence, right? For millions of years, millions of years, thousands, if not millions of years, Jehovah was a non-factor. However, he's saying, hey, look, Jehovah will throw you inside of a fucking thing for just telling somebody they're a fool, which is a good thing. It's a good thing to counteract any of these so-called Christians, because you're going to see a lot of these behaviors that Jesus is condemning is common among Christians today. But anyway, let's keep going. Therefore, if you are presenting your offering at the altar, and there you remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. Come to good terms with your accuser quickly while you are with him on the way to court, so that your accuser will not have you over to the judge and the judge to the officer, and you'll not be thrown into prison. Now, this is something that we see in Ptah Htp as well. So again, remember, Ptah Htp is considered the oldest book in the world, like the oldest extant book. So most books of the ancient world are, let's just say, younger than this book. Let's say it that way. The books that are older than Ptah Htp just don't exist anymore. I don't know if they existed in the time of Jesus, but they just don't exist anymore. But this line right here is actually like basically not to attack your accuser in front of a judge. It's just, it's just, like I said, it's just good wisdom. But he's saying it too, and I guess he's probably trying to take it to a logical extreme it doesn't need to be at. But notwithstanding, this is not, it's not bad, right? So he says, truly I say to you, you will not come out of there until you have paid up the last quadrants. Now, again, this is not necessarily true. Sometimes you have to let a motherfucker know that you ain't afraid of prison. There's this white boy whose son was being molested by their karate instructor, and then on his way to court, he was hiding in the hallway, and as the molester was walking by, he took out a gun and shot him 2 times point blank, killed him, and then he put down his gun, and the police proceeded to arrest him, and I think they might have released him. But it's like, yeah, sometimes some motherfuckers, sometimes you should get your hands dirty, so this whole idea you should not murder, I mean, yeah, you'll be answerable to the court, sure, but sometimes you should get your hands dirty. Like, people should not tell you that you should not get your hands dirty. Because I want you to understand that if you're talking about being a revolutionary, that means that, even me, I might want to be a professor, or I might want to be a scientist, or I might want to be an author, director. That doesn't mean that I'm not supposed to pull up when somebody says, hey, look, we attacking so and so forth, right? Don't mean that I'm not supposed to get locked and loaded. I'm just letting you know. Now let's keep going. 27. Matthew 5, 27. By the way, I'm just going Matthew 5 to 7, in case you guys are wondering why I'm pacing this way. Let me double check the chat. Brother Makari says, peace and black power, my brethren. All right. So 27 says, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Now, somebody was mad at me for this one. But my brother from another mother, faithful, author's joy, I hope he's out there. But anyway, it says, you have heard that I was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay. So basically, if y'all looking at them Instagram women, or you looking at the latest hashtag trend where whatever twerk team or what have you, right? You looking at that shit, you already done sinned, especially if you married. But notwithstanding, you already done sinned. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. That's the dumbest shit. But again, and I'm not going to say this really ties in with revolution versus power versus anything. It's just like, the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like straight up incel shit. But all right. He says, look, man, if you even look at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery. Like, okay, champ. Now, and again, this is where that kind of prude mentality comes from. I want people to understand this too. Because like yesterday we had Shoot the Breeze and people were on my case because they were like, Oni, it sounded like you got some pum-pum when you were abroad. And it's like, yeah, I got some pum-pum. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm not some pum-pum. Yeah, I got some pum-pum. I'm not no motherfucking prude. You know what I mean? I see a beautiful woman and she wants me and I want her. Then, I make my attempt. And if my attempt is successful, then, I pat myself on my damn back. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no motherfucking just, man, pum. I see some good pum boy. There's a reason. Well, I shouldn't get the pum because pum is yeah, okay. Get that incel shit out of here, man. But anyway, so I said, look, yeah, but I say to you, everyone that looks at women with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in their own eyes. Like, now if your right eye, now look at this shit. Look at this fucking crazy shit. Now, if your right eye is causing you to sin, basically to look at a woman. And the thing about brothers is this. Almost universally, if a woman walking by with the thick gelatin, like the gelatinous, if he ain't looking, it's because his woman's with him. And then his woman's looking. You know what I'm saying? She looking at him, looking at her. You understand? And she looking at her, looking at him, looking at her. She doing the wide eye. And the brother's trying to, just give the side eye. But the whole thing is that you already looking. Now Jesus is saying, this, and I don't believe this Jesus motherfucker existed. It's to the way that people are just telling him too. It's the spreading apart water. I mean, I might just go into 8 and 9 just a little bit, just skip through it just a little bit, because some of the shit that he's doing is some Gandalf shit, right? This is like the adventures. This is like the Hobbit or some shit. But because now, if your right eye is causing you to sin, tear it out and throw it away from you. For it is better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now, what kind of dumb fuck shit is that? Now, hopefully, somebody's reading this like, well, the son of a deity is not being literal. They're not being exact with their language. They're not saying exercise self-harm to avoid a mythical afterlife that would be much more harmful, according to them. But if they're not saying that, why the fuck would they say this? But again, now if your right eye is causing you to sin, tear out your eye and throw it away. Hopefully nobody took this motherfucker seriously. And that's why I'm saying you shouldn't take him seriously either, but it is what it is. For it is better for you to lose one part of the body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. Now again, there are people who would cut off their hand if it were trapped under a rock so that they can, escape being trapped and so on and so forth. There are snakes who do this shit. But again, this is like a real present danger. It is not some mythical afterlife where suddenly you are being burned somehow when you no longer have a body. You are being burned in fires or tortured when you no longer have a body. I mean, it's like this. Like, I'll say it this way. So I know some people are interested into artificial intelligence. One of the things that I recognize about artificial intelligence is that the computers do not have bodies. You know what I mean? So they cannot feel pain or pleasure. Ask ChatGPT, how does pain feel? And it's like, dude, I'm a fucking program. Like, I do not have a body, so I cannot feel pain. If your body dies, you will not feel pain. It's really that simple. Now, somebody could say, well, spiritual pain or, sadness. Okay. All right. Well, and see, here's the thing about this. Sadness, you have to understand, is linked with your hormones. If you do not have a body, you do not have hormones. And if you do not have hormones, if you do not have chemical reactions, if you don't have chemistry influencing your emotional state, you will not have emotions. A lot of things are tied to your body. And if you don't have the chemistry is what makes you feel these things. So again, this whole idea of a hell, it's just nonsense. But anyway, he says, look, and then now he's going to talk about masturbation. So some of you motherfuckers is in trouble. So that if your right hand is causing you to sin, I don't think he means like tapping a woman's ass. I think he talking about if your right hand, you do with your right hand. Some people's forearms so big. Tell you what, you sometimes go to shake a motherfucker's hand, you got to wash your hands right away because you like, why his grip so strong? If your right hand is causing you to sin, cut it off and throw it away from you. Now, I know motherfuckers don't read the Bible because I know you motherfuckers still got two hands, right? For it is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Now, I want to see you motherfuckers do this. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I want you to sit somebody down. So if you say to yourself, hey, look, Oni, you're kind of vulgar. So I'll just read this biblical text to somebody and show them where they're wrong. That's fine. Do that. But I want you to highlight this part and be like, hey, man, have you ever used your right hand? And did you cut it off? And why didn't you cut it off if this is the Son of God? This is the son of the cosmological being that created the entire universe, that triggered the Big Bang 4.7 billion years ago and destroyed galaxies upon galaxies upon galaxies. And now you are here after 5 million years, I believe, or actually maybe 4.7 billion years of Earth. Now you are here at last, and he's watching you. And they're watching you and you jerked off. Cut off your fucking hand. Why don't you cut your hand and listen to this being? And it's like, well, because that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, let's go. And I think it was actually this next passage that Author Joy had a thing with me. Brother McCarty says, I didn't know you were taking us to church today. Oh yeah, we going to church today. It's been a minute. You know what I mean? It's been a minute, but yeah, we're going to church today. So Matthew 5:31 says, now it was said, whoever sends his wife away is to give her a certificate of divorce. So the Old Testament's like, yo, divorce your woman. Divorce her. That's fine. Jesus is saying, no. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. I tell you, there's some irony because there was this sister in Africa, a teacher, right? She was on my ass about stuff. She was on my ass, but she liked my body and I didn't mind hers, right? She used to be married. I think she was a Christian too. So I could, like I said, go engage her on this subject because she likes engaging me on, this thing, and I don't agree with this and I don't agree with that. Hey, you're committing adultery. If you sleep with a man, because see, Jesus is on that incel shit. He's not even talking about sex. He's talking about marriage. Like, he just jumps to marriage, not even sex. But anyway, but either way, like I said, the Old Testament is telling you, hey, it's okay to divorce. And he's like, no, you were married before my father. My father saw it, and he believes that your marriage is permanent. And it's like, look, again, a lot of the context, a lot of the subtext is there is this cosmological being that's watching your every move after 13.5 billion years of creating the universe. Very, 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 very improbable. Very, very, very unlikely. I would say, again. All right. Anyway, but except for the reason of sexual immorality, which again, if he's making this exception, is just stupid. He's like, oh, there's an exception, but either way, he's like, yeah, it's bad and it's a sin. And so there was this, so like I said, my brother Arthur Joy was pointing out, because I saw this and I was like, come on, boys. You know what I mean? Like, come on, this is some incel energy. But Arthur Joy was making a good point. He was saying, well, right now we have single parents and, whatever, single parents, and this would be a good protection against that. I want people to understand this, that you should not look for solutions of African people outside of this colonial situation. You should look at it as to say, hey, look, when Africans are colonized, right, they are going to have a terrible, time overall. Because if you do not organically create your own communities, right, and other people who do not have your best interest are creating communities for you, you're going to have a shitty existence. There's a video recently about the Congolese mine collapsing, and a lot of people being stuck, and so the Congolese are now doing a rather musical and interesting rescue effort. But the reality is that these people are doing this really dangerous job for absolutely nothing, for pennies. And a lot of people are losing their lives, not just children, but adults are losing their lives and their ability, all because of this colonization, this economical system that is not organic to them, and is really just forcing them to be a destroyed people. In fact, I could tell you this. There's this sister who hit me up for money. Now, she has no real economic prospects. Like, she is, for all intents and purposes, a woman who tries to get by either begging or selling her body. Okay? So she asked me, hey, can you send me, what is the equivalent of $10? Begging me, please, can you send me, impenzi naomba nisaidie 20, right? 20,000, right? Which is $10. She's begging me for $10. And so eventually she says, nisadi basi nitamia apo nile people. But basically, eventually she goes, because most people are not going to understand this, and I'm not going to read it well for the people who do understand it. But eventually she says, mimi binadamu kumbuka Nimeyambwa kukosea siku zote, right? And you might say, well, what does that mean, right? So I'm going to give you guys a translation, because it's so, like one of the things about the people in Tanzania is that I do feel pity. She goes, so mimi binadamu kumbuka nimeyambwa, whatever, right? She says, I am a human being. Remember, I was created to make mistakes all the time. Okay? Some wisdom, in a sense, right? So here's this woman who's forced to sell her body. Well, not forced, but she's in an economic situation where it's just, she just cannot make do. She barely speaks the English, which is not the language of her ancestors or our ancestors, but the language of the colonizer. And so she's punished for that. She does have a pretty exceptional body, so she's also punished for that. She cannot, she's begging people miles away for just $10. And, for us to say, hey, you know what, for us to say, oh, well, their sexual immorality exists because she doesn't understand the Bible or some shit. Right? It's like, no. The reason why she's on this prostitution kick, if she's on a prostitution kick, is because the economic system sucks. And it's upon us if we're really trying to have solutions for our people, it's for us to develop the economic, political, and cultural systems, but not in such a way that the cultural system becomes the only paradigm that we see our people suffering through. Just want to make that clear, because this woman just texted me this, and of course I'm gonna give her the $10 because why not? But like, yeah, this is the reality of our situation. So of course I also agree that single motherhood is whatever, or children out of wedlock, blah blah blah. I get that, but I also understand that if you're talking about people in a colonial situation, you cannot expect their moral systems to be intact, because this is otherwise a decent, deep-thinking woman. Otherwise a decent, deep-thinking woman who wants the same as you, who bleeds the same way you do, is a human just like you, but because her country is poor and not and the Scotty may have too much influence, that's where the problem is. So what we have to do is we have to counteract and attack the Scotty and not attack the people. You understand? I think I might have said it today, in fact, because I actually, inspired by what this sister wrote me, I think I wrote something along the lines of, some people in Tanzania are so casually sophisticated. We could really become advanced people if we refocused our capital. Remember, the Scotty put their capital into themselves, into the works that do not advance the people, whereas we as Sankofa, we would give the capital to it. Because, like, honestly, I wouldn't mind supporting this woman to like get a business for her own independence, but how that can happen, I don't know. And I can't really say whether she has the business acumen for it to be successful, because that's another thing that I constantly make a mistake in. But I'm a charitable person. Either way, let's keep going. This is 33. And of course, if ironically, the boy Jesus would tell you he likes charitable people. But anyway, but only charitable people that think that he's a deity when he's not. But anyway, let's go. So this one's actually something that requires you to be familiar with the Bible a little bit. So, or the Old Testament a little bit. So that's why you see, if you can see, I have different windows open. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy pretty quickly. Matthew 5:33 says, "Again, you have heard that the ancients were told, 'You shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vows to the Lord.'" Right? Now, I'm going to give you the context for that. That's Deuteronomy 23:21. But there's a context to this. It's really interesting, right? So Deuteronomy 23:20 says, "You may charge a foreigner interest, but not your brother, so that the Lord your God may bless you in everything in which you put your hands in the land that you are entering the process. You are entering to possess," right? So that the Lord your God may bless you in everything to which you put your hand in the land that you are entering to possess. Now, again, this is the Berean Standard Bible. So when it says foreigner versus brother, maybe the earlier version says like either Israelite, or it might say Gentile and things like that. But anyway, he says, look, this is why I say this is warship. Yesterday on the Shoot the Breeze, we were talking about what are good books of war to read, right? I'm not going to tell you to read the Bible, but you have to understand that, especially the Old Testament, especially the Quran, the Arab text or the Muslim text, right? These are about warfare. The Bible, the New Testament, is about surrender. But you can see the context here. It says, look, you may charge a foreigner interest, but not your brother, so that the Lord your God may bless you in everything in which you put your hand in the land that you are entering to possess. And then he says, if you make a vow to the Lord your God, do not be slow to keep it, because he will surely require it of you, and you'll be guilty of sin. But if you refrain from making a vow, you will not be guilty of sin. So he's like, if you refrain from making a vow, if you don't make a vow to this deity, you won't be guilty of sin. But also he's like, again, you have to assume that there is this deity. If there's no deity, and there isn't, then there's a problem. I actually do want to see, because they have different versions of this older book. So again, I'm supposed to be reading the New American Standard Bible. I don't know if it's here. Okay, New American Standard Bible. So this one also says foreigner, but to your countrymen you shall not charge interest. So it says countrymen. And then let's go to the one that we all kind of read. Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not. So again, there's this concept of brothers and brotherhood and foreigners. I think maybe there was something else here that I wanted to see. Thou shalt not bring the hire of a whore or the price of a dog into the so on and so forth, into the house of the Lord. So you shouldn't bring whores into the church, I guess. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm just skipping through. There was something here I think I wanted to. There's a reason why I kept this thing, but it might not be. Let's see. Do not refrain. Speak to the Israelites. Cross references. Again, you heard the ancients. Do not break your oath, but fulfill your vows to the Lord. When you see how he says the ancients. Oh, this is Matthew. Sorry, this is Matthew 5:33. That's the one we were just reading. Refrain. So on and so forth. May the Lord hold David's enemies accountable. All right. So let's go back. So again, so this is the context. So he's like, you heard them tell you, do not make false vows, but fulfill your vows to the Lord. But I say to you, take no oath at all. Right? Don't take any oaths, neither by heaven, for it is the throne of God, nor by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Now remember that. Jesus is on that Jerusalem is the city of the great king. Okay? He's Jerusalem centered. He's not African centered. He's Jerusalem centered. And now some people might say, well, Jerusalem is a part of Africa too. And look, Israel is right on the border of Egypt. Okay? So if Egypt's in Africa and Israel's right on the border, and there's just this little strip of canal that separates Israel from Egypt, you could say that Africans of Northeast, were very likely, very probably going to be in Jerusalem as well. But remember that Jerusalem does get conquered in this story and in reality by the Neanderthals. Okay, just remember that. We'll go back to the last podcast if you don't understand what I'm referencing, and by not just Neanderthals, straight up 100% Neanderthals, but hybrids of Neanderthals. People who were Neanderthal-like. A lot of these philosophies come from people with Neanderthal tendencies, or part Neanderthal. Either way, he's Jerusalem-centered, and that's really a thing. He's gonna start talking shit about the Gentiles. In fact, you can actually kind of see on the bottom where he's like, "You got to be better than the Gentiles," and we're gonna get to that soon. But yeah, just whatever. So he says, now shall take your oath by your head, for you cannot make a single hair white or black, nor shall you take an oath by your head, for you cannot make a single head. But make sure your statement is yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond that is of evil origin. So he's like, look, don't make false vows. Just either say yes or no, right? Which again, you got to understand that if you're trying to colonize the people, this is not that bad. If all they can say is yes or no, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? And like, if you have to hold up your no, and you have to hold up your yes, right? Because again, like, and this like, look at this. This is actually pretty important. So it's basically like an advanced do not lie when asked by anybody for anything. You see what I'm saying? If I say, hey, like, for instance, if I'm the ruler and I say, all right, now it's time for you to bring to me whoever is coming against me, right? And before that, I say, look, you shall not make false vows. So the ancients say, do not make false vows to your God, right? And Jesus is like, no. Do not make false vows at all. Okay? Neither by heaven, right? Neither by earth, neither by Jerusalem, neither by the state. neither by the city, just do not make any false vows. Instead, always say yes or no. So now if I tell you, hey, look, I'm the ruler of, let me not be the ruler. Let me be revolutionary, right? You were captured, right? You were captured by the state. Let's say the state of America, right? And the state of America says, where is that motherfucker? Will you take me to Oni's hideout? You cannot say, sure thing, and then disappear. You got to say yes or no. Now, if you say no, you get your black ass in prison, obviously, or you get your black ass killed. If you say yes, then I get my black ass in prison, or I get my black ass killed. But if you can make a false vow, you can be like, yeah, sure, I'll take you. And then you just take them on a round. You say, but look, you got to wait here while you all in whatever. However you do it, right? At least you could possibly get away. At least I'm not compromised. But see this right here, this mentality of you got to say yes or no. And anything else is evil and you will burn, right? That is definitely not just not strategic. It's definitely counter-revolutionary. Now, when I say not strategic, I think I should probably go into that a little bit. Sun Tzu wrote this book called The Art of War. Again, like I said, you go back to the podcast yesterday. You might even see it on the Shoot the Breeze Clips show. Make sure you guys subscribe to that channel as well. But you go to Sun Tzu, and Sun Tzu tells you, he says, you must make your enemy think, like you must be in your enemy's head pretty much. And if your enemy thinks you are far, like you want your enemy to think you are far when you're close. You want your enemy to think you are close when you are far. You want your enemy to think you are many when you are few. You want your enemy to think that you are few when they are many, type thing. Hold on a second. Sorry, my son was making so much noise. You want your enemy to not know what you're thinking. What Jesus is saying is no. Be exact. Be exact. Be truthful all the time. Make your enemy know what's in your head. Otherwise, you will go to hell. Yeah, okay. Like I said, a real Christian. Because, see, most motherfuckers ain't real Christians. I ain't going to hold you. But a real Christian, you don't want that motherfucker anywhere near your movement. None of this shit is good. But anyway, we're going to keep reading. Now, this next one is Leviticus. We were talking about this yesterday, so I'm gonna go into this. One of the most important passages in the whole book of the Bible. And it's like the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life. It's like the dumbest thing. Like, I could not tell my son to do this. But anyway, he says, look, you have heard that it was said eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Okay, now this is what they call Hammurabi's Code. It's one of the oldest laws in the world. And so this is what I mean by these Europeans have... let me go to the New American English. Sorry. But this is what I mean by the wait, where is it? I can't click it. Okay. I'll read both of them. Why not? But the whole thing is that this is what I mean by this is a wisdom text, in the sense that you can gather wisdom together and curate it and select it so that it fits your agenda, right? That's what people do. Just like that's the Book of Power is that. Marcus Garvey's instructions to the people, he's gathering wisdom and he's articulating on it. It's a wisdom text. Ptah Htp, another wisdom text. Everything is like, I recommend you have a wisdom text. It's just that these are not good wisdom texts for you. But I have Hammurabi. They're telling you this is Hammurabi's Code, which is an old code way before the Old Testament, way before. But they just said, look, this is actually a good system, so let's put it in this book too. So here's how it reads. This is going to be the English Standard Version. We can read another version too. But it says, an eye for an eye. Whoever takes a human life shall surely be put to death. Right? Whoever takes an animal's life shall make it good, life for life. If anyone injures his neighbor as he has done, it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Whatever injury he has given a person shall be given to him. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good. Whoever kills a person shall be put to death. You shall have the same rule for the sojourner and for the native, for I am the Lord your God. Right? So apparently this deity, and again, it's bullshit because it's not something that the deity said. It's something that Hammurabi said. And it's something that probably Africans before him have said. Some of you might be more familiar with the King James Version, so let's just go to King James Version. And he that killeth any man shall surely be put to death, and he that killeth a beast shall make it good, beast for beast. And if a man cause a blemish in his neighbor, as he hath done, so shall it be done to him, breach for breach, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, as he shall hath... As he hath caused a blemish in a man, so shall it be done to him again. And he that killeth a beast, he shall restore it. And he that killeth a man, he shall be put to death. Ye shall have one manner of law, as well for the stranger, as for one of your own country. For I am the Lord, your God. Okay. And then let's just see if I can find the version that we were actually supposed to read, the New American Standard Bible. I don't know if it was 1995 or not. But anyway, this is supposed to be more clear and more cited and more, exact to the Hebrew, that kind of thing. So he says, now if someone takes any human life, he shall be put to death. But the one who takes the life of an animal shall make restitution, life for life. If you kill one of my animals, you have to pay me or some shit. Maybe that, or I don't know. Because the other interpretation seemed like something along the lines of, you should eat the animal. But I guess they're just saying, if you kill one of my animals, you should, give me an animal in turn, right? If someone, and again, this also suggests that humans are, better life than animals, which again, it makes sense for humans to say that, like it makes sense for humans to say that. Anyway, if someone injures his neighbor, but of course, it's not to say that this is a universal belief. I want to say that, like if somebody kills your dog, or somebody kills all your dogs in your house, you might want them dead too. You know what I mean? Like if you really appreciated those dogs. Not to say that one way of thinking is better than the other way of thinking. Or even, I'll say it this way, in fact. Depending on where you are, right? Depending on where you are, or I'll say it this way. Let's read, we read Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth. And in Wretched of the Earth, the idea that you could kill somebody's animal, right, and not have violence done against you is actually insane. Because again, the animal there is supporting their lifestyle. So Hammurabi's code, or even this code, might have been, hey, look, they'll pay you if they kill your animal. Okay, let's not kill them for it. But again, this mindset that like killing somebody else's animal is actually like, okay, just pay me for it, is not actually intrinsic or intuitive. It's just something that's just a code that people had to maybe reduce the amount of times they were killing each other, right? Or the amount of reasons they kill each other, or get away with somebody wasn't deliberately trying to kill your animal for some reason. But anyway, let's keep going. If someone injures his neighbor just as he has done, so shall it be done to him. And again, this is another one that it assumes the state, which is all right, but also it's like, like if somebody like punches me in the arm, I'm not just going to be like, hey, we're even, I punched you back in the arm. I might just, give him the good one too. You know what I mean? Like I might punch him in the fucking face. In fact, that was like when I was in junior high school, but like, yeah, there's some guy was slapping me, or he slapped me and then I punched him in the face, like what the fuck you slapped me for? Like not, eye for an eye, fracture for fracture. It's like, nah, I'm motherfucking knocking you out. Anyway, so fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Just as he has injured a person, so shall it be inflicted on him. So the one who kills an animal shall make restitution, but the one who kills a person shall be put to death. There shall be only one standard for you. It shall be for the stranger as well as for the native, for I am the Lord your God. So again, it's saying, hey, this God is doing this. And again, you get the point. You get the point. You get why a person would say, hey, look, let's have a criminal justice system that says if you do something bad to someone, then we will have that same thing bad to you, and it won't be excess, it won't be overboard, it'll be in proportion to whatever thing you do. Right? But yeah, but anyway, I had to tell my son to stop making noise, and he's not getting it, so he's gonna stop having a noisemaker. But anyway, so Why I say this is to say that, you get why this Old Testament is telling you this. It makes a little bit of sense in the context of building a society, right? Look what Jesus is saying. You've heard that it was said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. You know Leviticus. Okay. But I say to you, do not show opposition against an evil person. Do not show opposition against an evil person. Like, I don't even have to, I could just mic drop, because if we're talking about revolution and he's saying, look, even an evil person should not receive any opposition, right? Then, yeah, that's a problem, right? But anyway, let's keep going. He says, and so you're like, okay, but he can't really mean that, right, guys? Because we're talking about murder. We're talking about people fracturing your bones. We're talking about people pulling out your eye. You can't be serious, right, Jesus? Wrong. He says, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other toward him also. If he slaps your right cheek, make him slap your left cheek as well. I want you guys to process that. I'm going to look in the chat. Somebody let me know if you're processing that. Let me know if you're processing that. I don't know. It looks like the chat is like, nah, we ain't processing that. Whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other toward him also. And again, I want you to remember, this is not me writing this. This is not me doing a special reading. This is not me going to find a Bible that has a weird translation. Right? This is what is said. You remember eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth? Fuck that shit. No eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's eye. Take my fucking eye. But I say to you, do not show opposition to an evil person. Do not show opposition to an evil person. Do not show opposition to an evil person. I could probably pull out the King James version, and it's, thou shalt not, blah, 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 whatever. Do not show opposition to an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other toward him also. That is the worst advice you could give somebody in a situation of coming against evil. So I used, one of the things they say is 2 wrongs don't make a right. It's true. But you know what makes a right? Opposing a wrong makes a right. Opposing a wrong makes a right. If somebody's attacking a woman, what would be the moral thing to do is not to is to oppose their attacking of this woman. This is the moral code. You are supposed to be oppositional. One of the creeds, one of the deep sayings in ancient Kemet was very simple, very, very simple. I'll say it in Swahili. Tulinde ma'at tushinde is fet. Tulinde ma'at tushinde is fet. Sounds nice, right? It says, defend ma'at, defeat is fet. Defeat is fet. Defeat is fet. And this is a fundamental, revolutionary African mindset. And what Jesus is saying is this. No. Allow is fet. What kind of fuck shit is that? And you're thinking I'm capping. I'm not capping. This is the fucking book. Like I said, you go down. You don't even got to go to Matthew 6 and 7, but we're going to. You don't even have to go there. You could just read Matthew 5 to a motherfucker. Just sit down with them and say, does this really make any motherfucking sense? Because eye for an eye make a little bit of sense. It makes some sense. Slap me on my right cheek and then don't. What you could do is you could sit down with this person and you could slap them in their fucking face. Now, be prepared to defend yourself. Be prepared to motherfucking... you might have to kill this motherfucker. But you could just give this motherfucker a box. Slap them in their face and say, now what's your next move is to turn your other cheek. So I can slap that cheek too. If they turn the other cheek, you slap them again. And then you say what your next move is to turn the other cheek. And if they turn the other cheek, you slap them again. And you keep going. And you say, you really think this was a smart thing to do? You really think something good is waiting for you after you just got slapped the shit out of? They say, you know what, this was a really fucking stupid thing. My face just hurts. You say, yeah, this is what they wanted you to think. This is what's holding your people back. Now again, it makes sense. If there's somebody who's tremendous, who's slapping you in the face, maybe you do not attack them right there. But that's why I appreciate this. This dude. His name is I think he's a white boy. I think he's an Asian. I don't know what he is. He's this mysterious writer who writes these books about warfare and psychology and all that kind of shit, right? But he's like this. Like he's just like he could be anything. One thing he wrote was that revenge is very important. And he starts talking about the Japanese, how there was one point when the Japanese samurais were getting fucked over by this shogun. And they couldn't do shit. So they all left, like 11 of them just left and swore revenge. You know what I mean? And when the time came, they butchered the shogun. But they didn't do it right away, but they bide their time. So it's like when I think it was, matter of fact, make sure you guys listen to the Harsh Reality podcast. But it's like they were talking about the Chris Rock situation. They were saying, look, Chris Rock, even though you're an old motherfucker, you should have beefed up after you got slapped on national television. You should have beefed up and said, you know what, ain't no other motherfucker could slap me. You should be able to defend yourself and be like, hey, look, next time I see Will, yeah, he gonna get something. You know, it's something. Because, like, realistically speaking, you should not let some motherfucker slap you like that. Will Smith just let the shit out of me. What the fuck is wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? Like, because even if you do let the motherfucker slap you, say, okay, but look, they gonna get theirs. You know, and I'm not saying, look, I get the value in, oh, well, we shouldn't make the other person get theirs. I get the value in that. And I also don't. Because the motherfucker put hands on me. You know what I'm saying? I mean, unless it's time enough passed, like in America, they're like, well, 7 years after, you can't really be holding no grudge. But like, if time ain't really passed, then yeah, motherfucker, sure. Like I said, when I was checking this motherfucker, yeah, they was like, yeah, I'm gonna get my licks in too. Ain't no way I'm just gonna get whooped. That's why I go back to that mercy and mercifulness. But anyway, either way, he does say turn the other motherfucking cheek. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Oh, you want my cloak? You want stuff from me? Here you go. Take everything. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him too. Toronto, so when these motherfuckers came to Africa and took your ancestors, halfway across the ocean, completing the whole destination was it. You know what I'm saying? Give him who asks of you and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. Like I said, this woman hit me up for money. And like I said, the $10, oh yeah, sure, I got $10. But again, like there's a freedom, there's a choice, there's a reality, because this guy's gonna tell you to dispossess yourself of your possessions, to not even be fashionable, not have the drip. We were talking about drip yesterday, right? He's gonna tell you all that type of shit. So he's saying, look, even if a motherfucker's trying to take your tunic, right? I can't remember. I think a tunic's like your shirt. He's like, I'm gonna give you my fucking jacket too. Now, of course, they don't have jackets back then, but they had cloaks. So he's like, I'm gonna give you my jacket as well. No, I think the tunic was like like a shirt outfit kind of thing. He's like, yeah, you take my outfit and my coat. This motherfucker, man, he crazy. We're gonna force you to go 1 mile. Go with him too. Yeah, okay, but okay, chief. Motherfucker, crazy. Now, you might be like, man, but you just misinterpreted. You just, appreciation, the organic African paradigms here. Appreciation, this brother. He said I made sure to like the video. Appreciation, my brother. All right. So look here, right here. This is interesting. So you might be like, no, Oni, he ain't really talking about love your enemies type shit. Cap. So look at this right here. Matthews 5:43. This is like, because you might be like, well, Oni, you just misinterpreting. He's not really talking about loving your enemies. He's really talking about how you should deal with your own people and not the people outside of you. No. The Old Testament was talking about how to deal with your own people and not the people outside of you. Old Testament was a little bit more on the warship mentality. But again, the Old Testament is Jerusalem focused, Jerusalem centered. And if you get into the Old Testament, truthfully, you will be bowing to Jerusalem, just like how the Muslim bows to Mecca, right? This is not what he's doing. He's really telling you, do not be a revolutionary. Now, some people would say this was a revolutionary of his own time. And don't confuse being killed for being a revolutionary. Do not confuse being killed for being a revolutionary. Do not confuse being confused for being a revolutionary. Because that's already confusing. Because what he's saying right here, look at this. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. So that's what it's supposed to be. And he's saying that you, the Gentiles, already do that. Okay? Now, you could probably just say Gentiles. Now, Gentiles does not just only mean Africans, but pretty much you can say, like Gentiles pretty much just means anybody who's not a Israeli, right? But pretty much it's anybody with motherfucking common sense, right? He's like, you have heard that it was said in the Old Testament, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. This is why I can't even take this book seriously. And you shouldn't either. But he says, but I say to you, love your enemies. And look, he got to contradict himself too. You're going to say, pray for those who persecute you. Now, he's going to say your prayer should never, should just be one variation. But anyway, and he's going to say that pretty soon. But look, he says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may prove yourself to be the sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Now, of course, some black people are going to tell you, hey, the sun actually hurts these motherfuckers. The sun is good for us, and it hurts the enemy. You know what I'm saying? So it's possible when this quote unquote God is making the sun rise, they're not really making it rise for the same damn reason. It's like, yo, but motherfucker burn these crackers. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just playing. But either way, again, this is the assumption. Again, because remember, we are in a different scientific background. So we do not think that there is a deity that makes the sun rise, because the sun is not moving when we see it rise. What's happening is the earth is rotating. Now, we don't believe that the earth is rotating by a deity. We understand why the earth is rotating. It's because of the conservation of angular momentum. There's nothing to stop it from rotating. Like if an object in motion stays in motion, so it's rotating because it's been rotating, and the only thing that would stop it from rotating is for it to lose angular momentum. So there's no any of that. But the fact that this person is alleging to be a god, okay, alleging to be able to fly and transcend humanity, and they do not know that the earth is not that the sun is not only not rising, right? Or that rain is not being sent by, but not only is that the sun is not rising, but that there's nothing that's causing the sun to rise, because the sun is not moving. And then rain is obviously another process we all kind of should be familiar with. I can't remember what it's called now, but precipitation, I don't know. But there's like a cycle with regard to the water of the, you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't remember the name of it. There's like a cycle. Remind me to teach my son this thing so that I can remember it, but a little embarrassing. But anyway, but yeah, he's saying, so, I mean, again, because the thing is this, if you really were this advanced, if you really were this God, you would know nothing to go so. Like, if anybody knew this at this point in time, it would be the person who was a god. Realistically, that actually, like it'd be more like, yeah, the sun is actually not rising, but the earth is rotating. Like, very simple. But the fact that this person does not possess this knowledge already tells you that this person is not omniscient. obviously not omnipresent, obviously is not omnipotent, okay? And things of that nature. But anyway, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may prove yourself to be sons of your fathers who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. Now again, yeah, sure. Now, for if you love those who love you, what rewards do you have? He's like, if you love those who love you, what rewards do you have? Now, actually pretty interesting. He says, now this motherfucker Matthew. Okay, so Matthew, I don't know if Matthew is real or not real. I don't know. But let's say Matthew is real, right? Let's just pretend, right? Matthew is a tax collector. Like, he mentions himself in this book as the tax collector, all right? He's like, oh, the disciple, Matthew the tax collector. And this is, I'm pretty... I think it's pointed out that he is considered one of the disciples, right? So he's the tax collector. So he says, even the tax collectors, what? Do they not do the same? Now, I didn't understand this when I first was reading, because I'm just like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, why were the tax collectors? Do they not do the same? I guess he's also saying, do the tax collectors not, I don't know, collect tax from everybody? I don't know. And if you agree, oh yeah, so no, sorry. For love you who loves you, right? So he's like, if you love people who love you, what reward do you get? Even the tax collectors love people who love them, right? I guess, I don't know. He's like, if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Even the Gentiles, even those motherfucking Africans, not just Africans, Europeans, everybody, right? But like, even the Gentiles do they not do the same? Like the people outside of Israel, the people who are condemned to not be a part of the city of God, don't they also just love their neighbors? Which again, so, and this is actually an important thing for him to say. You know, this is an important thing for him to say. Because a lot of us say, we wouldn't have an ethical system without their wisdom texts. We would be a bunch of savages without knowing the Bible. But he's saying, even the people who do not know our biblical texts, do not know what our ancients were telling us, even they have the practice of loving their brothers and sisters, of behaving morally among their own. He's saying that. And he says, but you should do differently. You should love your enemy. You should be on that coon shit. Therefore, you shall be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. You understand? Yeah. So that was Matthew's 5. And like I said, you guys, I don't know how long I took. Let me see how long I took. Dang, it was almost fucking 2 hours. You know, but you guys can go over this with your family. It probably will take you less than 2 hours, but you can just go into an in-depth reading of Matthew's 5. Now, I would say Matthew's 5 to 7, but you just go to an in-depth reading of Matthew's 5 and you're good. Because anybody who's taking this, you got to tell them, look, man, if we are about an African revolutionary mindset, if we're about having self-respect and self-decency, this is not a description of that. This is not a description of that. Anyway, we're going to keep going. So, Matthew 6, charitable giving to the poor in prayer. So he says, now, there's only one thing I like in this passage. We're going to go over it. Basically, he's going to tell you, stop motherfucking praying so other people can hear you. But anyway, look, so remember this. Remember what he said last time. We're going to just review that really quickly, where he says, your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Your light must shine. So this is Matthew's 5:16. Okay? Now Matthew 6:1. He says, take care not to practice your righteousness in the sight of the people, to be noticed by them. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Now, again, like I said, Matthew is not even in the picture at this time. So it's like, this is all bullshit. Anyway, but like still, he just got through saying, he just got up on the hill and he was like, you are the light. Let people see your good works. And then later on, he's like, but look, take care that nobody sees your shit. Or else you have no reward with your Father who is in heaven. You'll go to fucking hell if somebody sees you doing good shit. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like, I tell you, man, like, what? It's like, it's not even like it's like another book. It's not like another author. It's not like, oh, well, he's gonna contradict it. You know, somebody else is contradicting his account. It's the same damn author. Who's like, I heard this motherfucker went up on the hill and told us, like it's not like he talking about a fucking madman. Like, some of this shit is done, you know, that it sounds like he's talking about a madman. But, you know, anyway, we still go along with it. So he says, take care not to practice your righteousness in the sight of the people, to be noticed by them. Otherwise, you have no reward with your Father who is in heaven. He says, so when you give to the poor, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, so that they will be praised by people. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. Like, if you're getting praised, if you are getting praised by people, you already got your reward. But when you give to the poor, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your charitable giving will be in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Now, again, look at this. This is not the mentality that Africans should have. If you are a Pan-Africanist and you are giving to, like I just told y'all, yeah, I'm going to give this woman some money. You know, it's just $10, but still, I'm going to give this woman some money, right? You let people know. Oh, yeah, I give to this organization. I give to these people. I do this. You let people know, not because you're looking for reward among people. But again, here's the thing I want you to say. There is no motherfucking God. So the fact that you would be doing something in order to please something that doesn't exist, that's a problem. Now, again, I don't mind the Christians not doing, but again, we all know the Christians are doing these charitable works. So it's not like they're actually taking this to account. They understand the real psychology is to, let people know that we are a charitable people today. But here's what they're telling you. Here's what Jesus is telling you. Oh, no, don't be trumpet. Don't be, the people in the synagogue, they hypocrites. All that type of shit. But either way, I do want you to, like I said, I don't, this is not a good mentality to have in the Pan-African movement. I'll say it that way. And I like this, though. This is good. I like this one. So this is like, like if I don't want to engage somebody on Christianity, but I want to shut the fuck up, right? I might put out this one. I'll say, Matthew 6:5. And when you pray, you are not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners so that they will be seen by people. Truly, I say to you that they have their reward in full. But as for you, when you pray, go to your inner room, close your door, and pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Now again, I do not agree with prayers and these deities and all that kind of stuff, but I like this passage where he says, hey, look, stop praying in the fucking street. I like that. Now, again, he's going by the assumption, oh, yeah, well, this guy. And again, look, I want people to understand this. So some people are saying this. Jesus is obviously not a son of God or something like that, but he might have had a quasi-spiritual experience. He might be an individual who had a quasi-spiritual experience. Now, again, a lot of this shit is bullshit. So he's going to start doing some magic powers type shit where it's like, okay, this is not real, right? But it's possible that there is an individual or some sort of individuals who feel like they received enlightenment in privacy, in quietude, because that is a concept even that existed in Egypt, So we kind of see it with the yoga practitioners and stuff like that, where you achieve enlightenment, nirvana through, inner contemplation and not so much thing. Now, that's not to say that's a proof of a deity, and it's not to say that it's not a hormonal reaction that is triggered by some sort of, chemistry that goes on with your body. It's realistically just saying, it is possible that this person, Jesus, had this belief in this deity because they couldn't articulate what the phenomenon that they were experiencing was. And they're saying, hey, look, you're not going to get that spiritual enlightenment. You're not going to bring people to spiritual enlightenment through these sort of things, but you might bring people to spiritual enlightenment, or you might bring yourself to spiritual enlightenment through closed quarters contemplation, which is, like I said, there are some people that are like that. There are some people who believe that kind of stuff. So these are my Kemet quotes. These are not really quotes from Kemet, but they're just lessons that some people would, some white guy gleaned from studying ancient Kemet in pretty deep depth. But here's one of them. I think it's silence right here. Yeah, he says exuberance is a good stimulus towards action, but the inner light grows in silence and concentration. So what he's saying is that he was in, or even like actually these let's do these two. So I do have the wider books on ancient Egypt. I haven't read them yet, but like let's say on the walls of ancient Kemet, you'll have a lot of lessons, a lot of information, a lot of instruction. And so this person went into Egypt and he saw, he read some of the works, and he's just trying to piece them together in the best that he can as a European. And these kind of things do kind of touch upon this idea that ancient Africans, in fact, yeah, actually look at these four. So the ancient Africans would have had something along these beliefs. Now, of course, God is not the word that you would use, but it says, look at these four, in fact. These are really important. Like, if you really want to understand, or I guess these are five, but if you really want to understand Jesus as a historical figure, you might want to understand ancient Egypt as a intellectual powerhouse, right? So let's go to the first one. It says, if you are searching for a nature, observe nature. If you're searching for a force of nature, or essentially you're searching for the gods, deities, the spiritual sense, spirituality, observe nature. You're actually going to see that Jesus does pick up some really poor nature-related allegories, but he does make nature-related allegories, which are really poor, really terrible, but he tries that, right? Next one is exuberance is a good stimulus towards action, but the inner light grows in silence and concentration. So there's this idea of an inner light, and it's grown in silence and concentration as opposed to exuberance. So you could go back into what he was saying about doing good works and well as prayer. It's like, oh no, don't pray exuberantly outside and with all that kind of stuff. It might be a good stimulus, but if you really want to develop yourself spiritually, develop that light within you, then go to silence and concentration. The next one is, not the greatest master can go even one step for his disciple. In himself, he must experience, the disciple in themselves must experience each stage of developing consciousness. Therefore, he will know nothing for which he is not ripe. Again, this assumption that within you, things are developed and that people outside of you cannot develop these things for you. I think, again, I didn't read too much further, but I think I did remember some part where Jesus is something along these lines. The next one is, the body is the house of God. That is why it is said, man, know thyself. Again, he's like, go and do your prayers and you will have this deity listen to you. And then the last one is, true teaching is not an accumulation of knowledge. It is an awakening of consciousness which goes through successive stages. Now, again, this is not in any particular order. This is the order I took it from the website, but it kind of all correlates with what is being said here. But either way, if you really want to understand what he might be saying here, some people are under the impression that Jesus might have been somebody like a Buddha, like a so on and so forth, who along the lines of the ancient Egyptians kind of developed an inner consciousness, like an inner spirituality, and then thought, oh yeah, well, I'm the son of God, or I'm a deity, or I'm a thing, or God is within me type thing, right? And the people around him might have been just confused about that, but it's not necessarily, well, again, it's not to say that there was a God as much as like there was this outside God watching you and all that kind of stuff, but a person could have been confused about that, but of course then they give him all sorts of magical powers where it's like, okay, this is not real, it's clearly just the mythological, like we were talking about that yesterday on Shoot the Breeze, the mythology type thing. But anyway, so this was also pretty interesting. And let me look at the comments again, because I hope you guys appreciated that little turn up. Real Blood Gem says, them gospels are an ancient psyop. Yup, he gets it. Ancient psyop. And yet we buy into it. That's the problem, right? So number 7 says, and when you are praying, do not use thoughtless repetitions as the Gentiles do. And you know who them people are, You might as well just say the black folk, right? Because that's all y'all motherfuckers do. Hey, I said Jesus, Jesus. Anyway, do not use thoughtless repetition as the Gentiles do, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. So do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him, right? Don't even ask, So it says, pray then in this way. And this is what's called the Lord's Prayer, which unfortunately I remember. Let me see. It might be some value in me reading it. So let's go. He says, our Father who is in heaven. So again, this is already wrong, right? Already wrong. There is no heaven. There is no Father in heaven. But he says, hallowed be your name. And again, if you're going over this with somebody who might be a believer, maybe don't be too strongly atheistic, materialistic. Maybe at the end you could be like, well, maybe like just get through the first three and then be like, well, this is impractical, right? This goes on the assumption of this Father who's in heaven. That's like Pan, But the thing with people is that you also have to be, because like I said, with this Kemet wisdom, it says not the greatest master can go one step for his disciple. They will know nothing for which they are not ripe. So you want to, true she's not accumulation of knowledge, it's an awakening of a consciousness. So you want to awaken people's consciousness slowly. So people are not going to just jump into, oh yeah, you're right about no Father, right? There might have been somebody who might have been listening earlier and they were like, I don't want to listen any further. So you can go and engage them and say, hey, if you believe this is true, if you believe this is the word of God, then let's just look over it and see how godly is this? Not even how godly is this, how reasonable, how practical is this for you in your real life today? And then eventually, in their consciousness, they're like, hey, this might not be the word of God. And you're like, yeah, you know why? Because there's no fucking God. Right? But just get to it slowly. But anyway, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? Okay, give us this day our daily bread. And again, your daily bread is not given by your God or whatever. And forgive us of our debts as we also forgive our debtors. Now, again, you do not want to forgive your debtors. You want to collect your debt. And do not let us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Okay. All right. So he says, so if you forgive other people for their offenses, if you forgive other people for their offenses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive other people, then your Father will not forgive your offenses. Now look at this fuck shit. Look at this. Look, this is all, in fact, I didn't even think about this earlier, but let's just look at this. So why your God can't forgive you? You see, it sounds petty, because at first when you read this, you're like, that sounds petty. But you don't really think about it. But it's like, why is your God petty? If they're telling you should not be petty, why is your God petty? Oh, yeah, I'm not going to forgive you because you ain't forgive people. But see, because you forgave people, I'll forgive you. But you supposed to be the example? You supposed to be the example of ultimate forgiveness? Of blind forgiveness? The example of blind forgiveness is like, nah, I ain't forgiving you for shit. So even your God is more reasonable than what this motherfucker's asking you to. Yeah, and it was funny too. You could actually call Jesus a motherfucker. I shouldn't. But you could actually call him a motherfucker because apparently he was God, wasn't it? Unless, he was also an angel. I don't know. Like, whatever. He's everything. I don't know. Anyway. I know it's jacked up. All right. There ain't no Christian listening after this, right? You guys got to read it to the Christians yourself. But anyway, let's say number 16. Fasting, the true treasure, wealth. Now, whenever you fast, do not make a gloomy face as the hypocrites do. So I don't know about this fasting thing, but some people do that fasting thing. And he's like, look, don't make a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they distort their faces so they'll be noticed by people when they are fasting. Truly, I say to you, they have their reward in full. So the motherfuckers ain't eating and they're looking sad. They're like, oh my gosh, I ain't eat all day. And he's like, oh, they already got their reward. They just looking for people to approve of them. I'm not saying people ain't looking for approval. I don't know. But I think that if you hungry, you probably looking that way because you hungry. But he's like, but as for you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face so that your fasting will not be noticed by people, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done and in secret will reward you. Yeah, okay. That's why you ain't see your rewards, because he's doing it in secret. Like, who would buy this shit, man? I'll tell you, man. All right. Do not store up yourselves. Look, this is not a good thing either, right? This is not a good thing either. So he's like, because I do want you to have treasures on earth. I do want you to use your treasures to improve Africa and Africa's conditions. But in order to have treasures to improve Africa with, you must acquire treasures. So he says, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. What? Where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in or steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So again, he's like, don't be rich, you know? Now again, this is not completely unreasonable. Not completely unreasonable. If we're talking about using your capital. But again, like, you wouldn't use all your capital anyway. You should have a storage of wealth. You should. You should. Yeah, you should. Because what because you might be like, well, no, he's just saying, because he's not really saying what I'm saying about using your capital. He's not saying that. He's really saying go be broke. Like, be fucking poor, be dirt poor, be like the plants. Like, I think he might have studied in Egypt. He might have studied in Egypt and he just got it completely fucking wrong. He might have been like the flunky and they were like, dude, it's better for you to drop out, you know? And he was like, I'll drop out. I'm right though. I'm God. They're like, yeah, sure, man. Just drop out. He's like, I'm God. I could do magic. Yeah. Okay. You know? And he went out like, yeah, man, I think shit, you shouldn't have anything, you know, type shit. Anyway, the eye is the lamp of the body. So then if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. So if the light that is in you is darkness, how great is the darkness, right? We're going to keep going. It says no one can serve. Oh, so this is actually a really famous thing. In other places you'll see, so W.B. Du Bois quotes this one. Now, obviously, this is the Bible, so everybody quotes the Bible and everything is highly quoted and everything. But and Du Bois is talking about Atlanta, and he's like, you cannot serve God and mammon. You know, mammon is like a demon of wealth type shit. But anyway, he says, no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Okay. Now, here's what I want to say about this. When we talk about African spirituality, African spiritual systems, African ethical systems, African morality, to be wealthy was good. To be wealthy was good. What? And of course, your wealth was not going to be exploitation or, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's not that kind of wealth. It's just having enough and supporting your family and being that kind of person. That's what you should be. That's what you should do. Jesus is telling you, no, don't do that. Don't be that kind of person. You can't serve God and wealth. Again, this is counter-revolutionary because right now, and this is what I want you to understand, right now you are a part of, unfortunately, we are a part of a people who are considered the global standard for poverty. The poorest people on the planet, the people who are overlooked for their poverty, for being poor, for being sometimes undereducated, but more or less just begging. Like I said, somebody all the way 10,000 miles away is like, can I somehow support myself without selling my body? But I'm going to sell my body too. They're going to sell their body, but they're also like, hey, maybe this American who cannot, you know, have my body will just give me money. And it's like, yeah, I will. Okay, sure. It's just $10 for me. But they're like, thank you. You know, I appreciate it. Yeah, like this is telling you embrace poverty. Now, again, think of it this way. Imagine a religion, because we had those, but imagine a religion or a spiritual system or a belief system or a wisdom code that was telling you, no. To be wealthy is good. Right? Imagine that. And not like bad wealth, like, oh, like, the demonization that capitalism gets. Not that kind of wealth. But I'm just saying, like, doing good works and being rewarded for it. That's what you should seek to do. That's what you should seek to accomplish. But it is what it is. We're going to just keep going. But it says, Howard be your name, man. Where'd you get that, man? Anyway, the cure for anxiety. So now look at this. Now, so you might be like, hey, Oni, he's not saying don't be rich. He's not saying, he's not saying don't have money. He's not saying don't get treasures. And it's like, he's like, no. That's exactly what I'm fucking saying. So this is the cure for anxiety. So Matthew 6:25 says, "For this reason I say to you, do not be worried about your life." Hold on a second. So let me go back. Backtrack. So in ancient Egypt, one of the things that we used to say to each other was Anku Ja Seneb, right? Anku Ja means life, health, and wealth. These are the things that you wished upon another person. So this was the belief system. This was the African spiritual system. This was the African moral system. They were saying, I wish you life, wealth, and health. I wish you to master life, wealth, and health. You know? And even if you go to, so there's this brother named Asara Motep, he's talking about Kimoyo, which is a Congolese spiritual system. And he's like, even that system was really about rewarding people. Like a chieftain will come to a person who was good in life, wealth, and health. And I actually encountered, I was like, yo, that sounds just like Uncle Johnson. He's like, you know what? It does. Right? Because it's just an African thing where we're just like life, health, and wealth. Those are the things that you have to be good at. That's what the spiritual pursuit was. That's what spiritualism was about pursuing life, wealth, and health. This is what Jesus is telling you. Do not be worried about your life. What the fuck? Who says that? Who says that? So he says, do not be worried about your life as to what you will eat or what you will drink. Like what? Like what? And here's the thing. My son, he doesn't really talk about too many things except for food. Which is bad, but it's still like food is so fucking fundamental that this dude's like, if I'm going to be speaking on a utilitarian level, what I'm going to be speaking about is food and drink. If I'm being a really utilitarian guy, it's going to be food and drink. But Jesus is like, don't even talk about that shit. All right, let's say, don't worry about your life as to what you will eat or what you will drink, nor for your body as to what you will put on. Is life not more than food and the body more than clothing? Then look at this. He's going to do the nature thing I was telling you guys about. You know, look at nature if you want to study nature. But he does it so bad. It's so stupid. It's like, you're supposed to be a fucking omnipotent, omniscient being. Are you fucking kidding me? You sound like an idiot. Like, notice, it's like a fucking hippie or some shit. Like, this dude, I'm telling you, man, I might go into a little bit, but like, he's chilling on a fucking boat during a storm, and then he's like, guys, chill. And stops the storm. Like, they're fucking crazy, man. It's so stupid and unbelievable. But anyway, so he says, look at the birds of the sky. They do not sow, nor reap, nor gather crops into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more important than they? Now again, this... So if you want to be a functioning nation state, a functioning nationality, you want at least people to be engaged in agriculture. At least. And what Jesus is telling you is like, look at the birds. They don't do agriculture, but they still eat, right? You don't have to fucking, you're better than them. So why would you engage in, so what the fuck are you talking about, my guy? Like, what are you talking about? Birds have to work to, like, they have to work in a sense of, they have to fly around and search for, like, they have to hunt regularly. Oh my gosh, what is wrong with this guy? All right. Anyway, so I should have said, oh my, I should have said that. Anyway, but you're more important than they. And which of you, by worrying, can add a single day to his lifespan? Now, so what is he talking about? You can definitely... So again, this is the motherfucker who's supposed to be omniscient. You can definitely add to your lifespan by focusing on what you eat and how you dress. Right? Like, wearing clean clothes and eating clean food can definitely extend your life. Like, remember, this is the motherfucker who just, like, dies. Like, what does he die, like, at 30? I guess he dies kind of. No, 28 or some shit, right? I don't remember. I think he dies. I mean, I guess 30-something is not that bad an age. But I got to look at it. I got to look it up. Because I think he might have died at... Because I think Nas had a rap where he was like, Jesus died at age 32 or something like that. Or he had a rap. I don't remember. Like, all I need is one mic. Yeah. Oh, 33. Yeah, he dies at 33. So I guess that's not a bad... that's not a bad age to die at, but still, like remember that people in Africa were like, at this point in time, we're living to like 120. Like, I'm telling you, man, like, people in Ethiopia were living to like 120 around this time. So, and I can show you guys that if you are in disbelief. So it's like, yeah, a motherfucker walking around saying, don't focus on your life and, then dying at 100, being an immortal and dying. Like one of the only immortals to fucking die, in fact, realistically speaking, the only immortal to die, right? Like, that's already principle. Off principle, you gotta like not follow a motherfucker who's immortal and dies. Like that's just like something that that don't even make any damn sense. This is a pretty good alter. I was supposed to put it in the Book of Power. I did not for some reason. I don't know why. But this was actually more of a pro-black compendium type thing. But this was long-lived Ethiopians. That's what they used to call us. Like ancient Africans, they used to call them long-lived Ethiopians. And it says, based off of what they were eating, a meadow of the suburb, city full of flesh, meat boiled on all four-footed, blah, blah, blah. They drink thing. And he's like, they drink milk and they're the tallest and most beautiful people, according to canvases and perceiving them, so on and so forth. Where are we? The kings. I think this is Herodotus. So they were asking Herodotus how old they became. And so, sorry, Herodotus is talking about the people here. And he's like, so the Persians were saying to the Ethiopians that they said the 80 years was the longest term of life appointed to a Persian man. So people in Persia were living to 80, right? And the Ethiopians answered. So then when Ptah Htp guy asked the king in return about the length of days and the manner of life of his people, he answered that the greater number of them reached the age of 120, and some surpassed even this. So this is something that a lot of people don't remember about ancient Africa, is that people actually, like, depending on where you were, people actually had long lives. And this is so one of the kingdoms that I thought was really good was so I just want to show you guys this because it's always important to remind people about this. This is some data about the census from African Americans compared to European Americans, and how actually a lot of African Americans, even in 1900, they had more centenarians than the European Americans. This is the information on that. But this is something inside of this book, Jao dos Santos in Ethiopia Oriental, where he says of Great Zimbabwe or the Mutapa Empire, he says it is common among these people to live to 90 and 100 years of age. And so he's writing this between 1586 and 1597. So again, you have this Jesus character who's like, you can extend your life with food and drink and clothing, and I'm a fucking immortal. And then he dies at 33. Which is actually younger than me, so cool, so like and again, modern technology today makes it so that 190, like those are actually hard to get to, and like I said, I didn't read it, so I should probably read it because maybe somebody's listening. But this is some data from I think the American census. I think it was I think I read it from what's his name. J.A. Rogers. But he says, for instance, in 1900, there were 837 Europeans who reached the age of 100 or over, compared against 2,533 Africans, or one European centenarian for every 3 Africans. In 1910, it was 764 to 2,675, or 1 to 3.5. In 1920, it was 1,168 to 2,935, or 1 to 2.5. And then in thing, so you kind of see that Europeans. All right, and then next year, 1930, next decade, it was 1180 to 2,467. So you kind of see the ratio dipping, 1.1 to 1.9, and it says see the U.S. Census reports 1920 and 1930. 1930 was volume 2, page 577, and it says it's evinced that Europeans were growing in number, but when looking at the 1830s. 531 Europeans to 2,120 Africans, this during our enslavement, no less. You see an excellent picture of how our lifespan used to be. So they're saying that during slavery even, like if there were Africans that lived long, because some obviously were killed, but a lot of the people who lived to old age, even in the 1830s, were like, there was only 2,000 of them, but it was still like, like what the fuck, you know what I mean? But anyway, that's just an interesting tidbit of the U.S. Census. The Bit of Medicine says 33. What's 33? Oh, the age of Jesus. Yeah. All right, so I'm like, what? I thought it was like 33 over here. But all right, so he says, yeah, could you even add a single day from wording? Yeah, you can. All right, so, and why are you worried about clothing? Notice how look at this fucking dumb shit. Like if somebody told you this, like it'd be like hippie or some shit. Like only a hippie or somebody like high as fuck would say this. Why are you worried about clothing? Notice how the lilies of the field grow. Do they not labor, nor do they they do not labor, nor do they spin threads for cloth. Yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory clothed himself like one of these. Okay? So he's like, hey, dude, the lilies don't make clothes, but even Solomon, who's rich, he was like, I'm going to dress like a lily. So he's like, but if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Like, what are you fucking talking about? Dress your damn self. And again, there are beliefs. Like, even if you believe in a fucking God, there are some people who would say, like the gods act through you. Like I guess like the Greeks might even think that, like the gods act through you, or the gods don't help those who don't help themselves type shit. That's a decent philosophy if you believe in gods. This guy is like, you don't even have to fucking dress yourself because God will dress you. And yet, that's not a reality. If you go outside naked, you will be naked. You know what I mean? Like, you will be naked. It's not like a fog, it's going to just fly over you. You will be fucking naked. But anyway, he says, do not worry then, saying, what are we to eat? Or what are we to drink? Or what are we to wear for clothing? Again, he does when I was saying he doesn't want you to have riches, I meant he does not want you to have riches. For the Gentiles, look at this. For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things. Okay? So he's like, other people, like the people who were not, already have the common sense to dress themselves and drink and pursue food and drink and work for their, do agriculture and try to expand their lifespan. He's like, they already know this good stuff. Because see, the argument is always, well, how would we know what to do if we don't have this book? You already fucking know it. Like I said, my kid already knows it. He doesn't have this fucking book. He hasn't read the Book of Power yet, obviously, right? It's a huge ass book. But for the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things, for your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided to you. Again, nonsense. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. He said, don't worry about tomorrow. Again, you build up treasure for tomorrow. You build up treasure to help other people, obviously, but you do not get rid of your treasures to the point where you are suddenly like, I don't got nothing, but I think this God will provide for me. Because guess what? That will not happen. Even this motherfucker who's telling the story is going to die at 33. If it's true, they're going to die at 33. Unceremoniously. Fucking public lynching. Okay? For some dumb shit. Do not, this is just definitely not the person you want to follow. Definitely not. Now, granted, you might say, well, this book is really influential and inspirational, and therefore, again, unless you're writing a fucking book, who the fuck cares? Unless you're writing a book, who the fuck cares? But again, the reason why it was so popular is because Constantine took it up and said, whoa. If somebody believed this shit, they'd be fucking stupid. I don't remember the story. There's the story of these Native Americans, though, Native Americans who had the most fighting spirit in America, some people would say, it came to the point where the white man was like, only good Indian's a dead Indian, because he knew these Indians would not want to give up their land. They had a good fighting spirit. They died fighting. A lot of them. Some of them didn't. Some of them died praying because they were Christians. And the white men slaughtered them while they were praying because they were Christians. Stupid ass Christians. So Constantine understood in hoc signo vinces. He understood in hoc signo vinces. In this sign we conquer. He understood that. So the Native Americans, this is Native American story. I don't remember what it's, I don't know what to look for if I were to look it up, but it's a Native American story about some Christian massacre among the Native Americans. I think I want to just look it up really quickly. I don't want to look it up in front of you guys because, you know, like, I don't know what can show up, and I don't want to be. I mean, I'm already demonetized enough, so I don't want to start owing people money, you know. It could be this one, so I'm just gonna pretend like it's this one. It could be this one, so I'm just gonna pretend like it's this one. We're gonna go to this page. So this is not me. This is not black people. It's not white people. This is Christians. This is Native Americans. It have nothing to do with any of us. The Ptah Htp massacre, also known as the Moravian massacre, was the killing of 96 pacifist Moravian Christian Indians by U.S. militiamen from Pennsylvania under the command of David Williamson, so on and so forth. Due to this commitment to Christian pacifism, the Moravians did not take sides during the American Revolutionary War, which caused them to be viewed with suspicion by both the British and the Americans, as the Moravians were collecting crops, so on and so forth. Oh, no, I don't think it's even this one. I don't even think it's even this one. No, there's a different one. There's a different one. There's one where they're, like, praying. I think it's a different one. Yeah, so basically, I do want to read this because it sounds interesting. Or it could be this one, I don't know. But I do want to read this because it sounds interesting, i.e., like, if you did not support the revolution, which, again, like I said, a counter-revolutionary, you do not support the revolution on either way. Other people will try to kill you, and so I guess the Americans here say, yeah, we're going to fucking kill them. Pennsylvania militia encountered them and falsely promised the Moravians that they would be relocated by the warring parties. Once they gathered together, however, they rounded the unarmed Moravians up and said that they planned to execute them for being spies. Charges that the Moravians rebutted. Again, might makes right. You know, merciful, merciless. They spent the night before their death. Yeah, okay, that's it. Spent the night before. This might be it. They spent the night before their death praying as well as singing Christian hymns and psalms. 18 of the U.S. measures were opposed to the killing of, but though they outvoted by those who wanted to murder them, those who opposed the murder did not participate. Before murdering them, the American soldiers dragged the women and girls out of the snow and systematically raped them. As they were being killed, the Moravians sang hymns and spoke words of encouragement and consolation one to another until they were all slain. Believing in non-resistance, they pleaded for their lives to be spared, but did not fight back against their persecutors. Yup. So this is why Constantine was like, yeah, in hoc signo vinces. This is why Constantine was like, yeah, in hoc. Again, this is not African people. This is not European people. These are people who had nothing to do with anything regarding this Christian book whatsoever. That were not even, like, according to, even though this quote unquote Jesus and this quote unquote God was omniscient, we're not even a mention, not even in the imagination of this fucking false prophet, but whatever, right? Not even a fucking mention. They took the belief wholeheartedly and were slaughtered while singing and dancing. And this is not just any people. These are the Native Americans, the savage, the vicious, the people who are defending their homeland from invasion, from a massive invasion, right? These people who were very, very violent, they became this, singing and dancing before being slaughtered wholesale. Singing and dancing and begging for their lives. This is what in hoc signo vinces is. So again, if you wonder why Jesus is so popular, it's not because it's so good, it's because it's so bad. It's because it's so bad, because you could have motherfuckers singing and dancing while you're fucking killing them. Okay? That's why. Anyway, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep reading. I hope you guys appreciate that. So let's go. So judging others. Do not judge so that you will not be judged. For in a way you judge, you will be judged. And by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. Why? Do not look at this. So this is something to just use against a motherfucking Christian when they're like judging you. You'd be like, well, don't judge. All right. So why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eyes, but do not notice the log that is in your own eyes? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye and look the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. So again, this could be interpreted in multiple ways. What I could say is this. It's okay. you should judge other people. Now, of course, you shouldn't judge them by a standard that you fail to uphold, obviously, but you should judge other people. But it is what it is. I mean, again, this is not that bad. He says, do not give what is holy to dogs, and do not throw your pearls before pigs. I was almost say swine because of the thing, right? Or they will trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. So again, this is not bad. Do not give what is holy to dogs. But again, what do you consider a dog? What do you consider a pig? What do you consider a pearl? What do you consider holy? But yeah, people will definitely tear apart the things that you think. Prayer and golden rule. So I don't know if I really should be reading 7, because it's not as bad as, it's not as egregious as 5 and 8. Or maybe it is, I can't remember. But this is generally wisdom, actually. I think this is generally wisdom. So prayer and the golden rule. So ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. Now again, this is not true. This is not true. But this is what Jesus is teaching you, right? It says, for everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and those who knock it will be opened. And what person is there among you who, when his son asks for a loaf of bread, will give him a stone, right? He's like, hey, if your son wanted a piece of bread, would you give him a stone? Now again, this is the guy who doesn't have any children, right? Probably never even have sex, like an incel. But anyway, like a virgin or some shit. I don't know, actually. I don't remember. They said he used to hang out with prostitutes, Ethiopian prostitutes. And I've met Ethiopian prostitutes because I was flying through Ethiopia. They're not good people. So I don't know what the fuck I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Anyway, like easily like the worst people I've met in Africa. And what person is there among you who, when his son asks for a loaf of bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, he will not give him a snake, will he? What are you talking about? But okay, he says, so if you, despite being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, right? So apparently you're evil, but you know how to give good gifts to your children. How much? Oh, she's like, sorry. So even evil people know how to give good gifts to their children. How much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? So again, this deity is not real. So that's the problem here, So he says, in everything, therefore, treat people the same way you want them to treat you, for this is the law and the prophets. Now, again, it's not bad. It's not bad. But again, it's not good either. Realistically, look, you have to treat people according to whether they are good or bad. You know what I mean? By your African standard. I mean, really by your cultural standard, but, cultural can be a little biased, but basically by your African standard. By African standard, I mean when I said this before, Tulende Ma'at, Tushinde is fat, right? Defend Ma'at, defeat is fat. When I said that, that's realistically saying, hey, look, I would defend the righteous and destroy the wicked. Okay? Now you might say, what is righteous? What is wicked? Again, ma'at is what's good. Now, if you don't know what ma'at is, and Jesus is not teaching about ma'at, and most people do not learn about ma'at, then that's where your problems are. That's where you have a real problem, because you have an African system that you are unfamiliar with. Like a really popular, powerful, long-standing, amazing African system that you are unfamiliar with. That's where your problem comes in. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you want to get familiar with African about Ma'at, definitely go and read the Book of Power. Okay? You can even pick up the Pro-Black Compendium. We have that written there. You could read earlier books like African Philosophy, Pharaonic Discussions. Pharaonic Philosophy by Theophile Benga. You could even read, I need to read it myself, TDKA's Ma'at, but the whole thing is that you want to read something on Ma'at, and then you might have a better understanding. But I would obviously recommend first and foremost the Book of Power, because I'm actually articulating on it in a way that I know is good. You know what I mean? Like, I can't really vouch for anybody else, but I can vouch for myself. beyond that, let's keep going. Narrow and wide the gate. So even through the narrow gate, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad and leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it, for the gate is narrow and the way is constricted that leads to life. And there are few who find it. So again, I don't actually remember why I included this last thing, but since I said I was going to include it, because again, it's not necessarily, like, again, it sounds like it's just tying up the wisdom, but it kind of, and so it might be a good presentation for Jesus to have done. Like, again, if Matthew even observed it, and I'll show you that he didn't, but if Matthew even observed it, you might say, well, it's probably a good presentation to say a bunch of bullshit and then say a bunch of true things after it. Or not even true per se, but saying a bunch of, like, people might not necessarily be that deep of a critical thinker. It's not necessarily as contradictory to knowledge. You know what I mean? Because again, like I said, you can probably see this could parallel some stuff in ancient Egypt too. You know what I mean? So he says, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad and it leads to destruction. Like, there are many false paths, and there are many who enter through it, for the gate is narrow and the way is constricted that leads to life, and there are few who find it. So actually, I can show you guys in ancient Kemet. So again, these are way older. Well, this is not. Look, it says the way of knowledge is narrow. You see what I'm saying? So again, this is from the inner temple. So they're saying that if you go into the inner temples and you looked around, you might come out with learning that the ancient Egyptians had the belief system that they would communicate with each other, that the way of knowledge is actually narrow and it's not broad, right? So when Jesus is saying this, people might be like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Like, oh yeah, I heard something like that, or somebody told me that before. You know what I mean? So it's not like, it's like, again, he's talking about leads to destruction and this kind of stuff, right? It's like, okay, you know what I mean? This is interesting though. He says, beware of the false prophets. Like, it's ironic, but okay. Beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Grapes are not gathered from the bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, and the bad trees bear bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then you will know them by their fruits. Again, so he's telling you, hey, look, I'm going to tell you how to live a good life. And he's fucking lynched at 33 and turned on by his own fucking people. And he's a fucking immortal and he dies. His fucking mother was just like fucking around. Like, yeah, my guy. We see the fruit you're bearing. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. All right. He's telling you, hey, guys, look at the fruit I'm bearing. I'm fucking immortal, but I'm gonna die at 33. Like, it's like nobody's a fucking immortal. Nothing is an immortal except for this motherfucker, apparently. And he dies. Like, come on. All right, so not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name cast out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Leave me, you who practice lawlessness. Now again, this is the Father of forgiveness, who's like, fuck you, why are you hanging around me? But I don't think so. I would actually recommend you guys just read Matthews 5 and 6 to somebody, because these are not they're not that bad. I'm thinking, I don't know. Because I vaguely remembered it was Matthews 5 to 8, and then I read 7, then I read 8, and I was like, oh yeah, it's not 8. But I guess I just didn't process that it might not be 7 either. So he says, then 2 foundations. So he says, Matthew 7:24. He says, therefore, everyone who hears the words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who builds his house on the rock, and the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against the house, and yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, and it fell, and it was collapsed. And its collapse was great, right? And so, he's just saying, hey man, listen to what I'm saying, because this is what you're supposed to do. and other people they're not. And again, the big assumption here is that you treat everybody like your neighbor, because that way you can enter heaven type thing, right? You can have a good afterlife because your God is secretly watching you and all that kind of stuff. And of course, if that were true, again, it would be kind of stupid, but it's not true. So it's not just stupid, it's criminal, So anyway, so when Jesus had finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he was teaching them as one who had authority and not as their scribes. See what I'm saying? He's like, oh, you have authority. So basically that's it. He's just perpetrating a fraud. And people were like, wow, okay. So anyway, that's pretty much it. But I'm going to show you guys maybe 2 passages from these. I'm just going to skip through. So this is Matthew's 8. Calms the storm. Yeah, so this is the demon pig story and the calm the storm thing. So here he is. This is some wizard shit. And I'm just going to read it, and then I'll just tell you how this is wizard shit. So he's like, when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him, and behold, a violent storm developed on the sea, so that the boat was being covered by the waves. But Jesus himself was asleep. Now he's sleeping during a storm on a boat. And they came to him and woke him, saying, "Save us, Lord, we are perishing." And he said to them, "Why are you afraid, you men of little faith?" He's just constantly calling people men of little faith. What is wrong with this guy? And then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and it became perfectly calm. The men were amazed and said, "What kind of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" So again, that's some wizard shit, just sleeping on a boat in a storm. But again, nobody should believe this stuff. And actually, because I was skipping through, I was trying to look for when Matthew met him. And it looks like Matthew might have met him after this stuff. So again, this is all bullshit. And even Matthew doesn't even observe this. But anyway, we're gonna keep going. And he says, this is the story I was talking about. Look at this shit. This is so weird. It's like you're in like Lord of the Rings or some shit. But it's like, and when he came to the other side of the country of the Gadarenes, 2 demon-possessed men confronted him as if they were coming out of the tombs. They were so extremely violent that no one could pass by the way. Now again, you should probably see this stuff in real life, but you really don't. Or maybe you do. I don't know. And they cried out, saying, "What business do you have with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Are you trying to send us to hell?" Or I don't know what it is. Actually, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. And so he's like, now there are, like Revelations type shit I'm talking. Anyway, so he says, now there was a herd of many pigs feeding at a distance from them. And the demons, now all of a sudden the demons begged him, saying, "If you are going to cast us out, send us into the herd of pigs." What? So he listens to the fucking demons, which is weird, right? Because that's one of the things you're not supposed to do is listen to fucking demons. But Jesus himself is like, yeah, okay, I'll do whatever the fuck you demons want. So he says, and he said to them, "Go." And they came out and went into the pigs. And behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the water. So he was like, okay, sure. You go into those pigs. And then the pigs drowned. Apparently the pigs drowned themselves. And the herdsmen ran away and went to the city and reported everything, including what happened to the demon-possessed men. And behold, and so now you're thinking, okay, the end of Star Wars or something, everybody comes out and celebrates, your big victory, right? Look at this. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus. So this is where you're about to be like, this never happened, because the whole city doesn't come out to celebrate you. No, they don't celebrate this motherfucker. They say, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. They said, "Please leave our fucking country. You just drowned our pigs. You just drowned the whole herd of pigs. What in the fuck is wrong with you?" Like, and it's not even like it's me saying it. It's not like this is like an account outside of the Bible. This is what your boy Jesus is bragging about to this guy Matthew. He's like, "Yeah, man, one time I went to this city and I just ran their pigs into the fucking ground." And they were like, "Please leave," right? And so look, see, after all this, then it says Matthew called. So after he does all these supernatural shit, then he says, as Jesus went on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting in the tax collector's office, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. And so, yeah, this is when he meets Matthew. So all that other shit, Matthew wasn't even around to see, which is ridiculous. Yet this is the book he's writing. And so Jesus is just telling him, yeah. So I went save somebody, and they were like, "Get the fuck out of my city." Oh what the fuck? Okay. And he's like doing all these like, come on. All right, let's not even do this. Yeah. So Ben Madison says the apostles didn't even write the books. Seems the books were written 100 years after Christ allegedly existed. Exactly. But that's what it is. Anyway, looks like I only got 2 concurrent viewers, but I got a few likes, 9 likes. So appreciation for the fam for coming through. But that's pretty much all I wanted to read about this book. And yeah, it's really good. It's interesting. It's I want you to when you see a Christian, either send this to them, but maybe this might be a little bit too harsh, so maybe don't. But or maybe you should, because I'm just telling like how it is. But I will say this: just go and read Matthews 5 and 6 to them. Just read it. Just have a critical reading with them and say, hey, does this really make sense? Does it really make sense to, if somebody wants something from you, like somebody wants your vagina. You go to a woman, somebody wants your vagina. Are you obligated to give it to them because they asked you for it? Because they wanted it, they need it. And if you say so, sure. You could obviously, that's obviously consent. You know what I'm saying? You get your consent, and then you say, well, I don't think that was a good thing. I don't think it was a good idea for you. But if you believe it was, that's exactly what Christianity wants for you. But if that's what they refuse, and they should refuse, right? Then you say, well, look, you see what I'm saying? This is what Jesus is trying to teach you. This is what Jesus wants from you. And like I said, you guys can go back and look at this massacre. I'll write it down in the chat for those of you who don't know the title of it. I can't pronounce this. I'm not going to hold you. It's a Native American word or a FBA word. It's a Asian African American word, right? Cap. Anyway, but Nandehuntin massacre. You read that and you tell me why did Constantine say in hoc signo vinces? That's a homework assignment. Why did Constantine say in hoc signo vinces? You want people to read. If you're going to give somebody this book to read, you say, hey, look, read Matthews 5 to 6. This is an assignment for your kids, in fact. Was it Matthew 5? Yeah, Matthews 5 to 6. Read Matthews 5 to 6 and answer me this. Why did Constantine say in hoc signo vinces? Use the Nandehuntin massacre. That's how you're supposed to be your professorship. You say, you read this and you read about the Nandehuntin massacre. And when you do that, you can understand the full picture. This is what they want from you. This is not a path towards black power. This is not a path towards black revolutionary aspirations. This is not a path towards Haiti being liberated or Senegal being liberated or Tanzania being liberated. This is a path towards servitude and being colonized. And I hope I established that, and I hope that proved that. So again, you should not want the black Christians in your midst. You should want the black Christians to try to understand. You should want from the black Christians to just give you shit and tell them Matthews 5. Read Matthews 5. Read Matthews 5 and 6. Read Matthews 5 and 6. Give me shit. Read Matthews 5 and 6. And then finally when they say, look, I'm not giving you any more shit. I don't believe in Matthews 5 and 6. You say, yeah, exactly, you don't. Now come be an African. You know what I mean? And grab a gun. And come get some shit. That's it. Anyway, Shemi Hotep, Uncle Jah said Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua, Necher.